Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
She didn't even flinch as she tossed the car keys into her bag, her evening gown shimmering under the hallway light. "Don't wait up," she said coldly. "I've got a date with Joel." My throat went dry. Joel? That smirking jerk from the party? Before I could respond, she added, "Oh, and by the way, marriage doesn't mean exclusivity. If you weren't such a jealous stick in the mud, you'd understand that." She walked out, leaving the faint scent of his cologne on the sheets. That's when I knew. My wife had crossed the line, and I wasn't just going to let it go. Dear listeners, before we dive into today's story, let us know your location in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's begin the story. Chapter 1, Dennis Langley shifted in his airplane seat, knees jammed against the tray table as he tried without much success to find a position comfortable enough to doze. At 6'2" and broad-shouldered, he wasn't built for narrow rows in economy class. People sometimes assumed that as a senior project manager at Vernon Tech, he'd have a cushy business class ticket whenever he traveled. But not this time. Circumstances and budget strictures had conspired to stick him in the back half of the plane. He was used to traveling for the company. But this particular journey felt different. And not merely because it was 9 hours in the air. It was the reason behind the journey. He was escaping. Or more accurately, buying time while his friend and attorney Rebecca Morgan handled the chaos that had exploded in his life. A chaos named Alyssa, once the beloved wife he'd trusted completely. Dennis let out a slow breath, eyes shifting over the wing outside his window. Jakarta loomed at the other end of this flight, where Vernon Tech had posted him for anywhere between 10 and 14 months to salvage a key infrastructure project. The project was so crucial that the CEO had forced it on Dennis, accept or walk. But to be fair, walking away from Vernon Tech would have complicated his personal war at home. That war was the reason he'd taken the assignment. He wanted as many miles as possible between himself and the rubble of his marriage. His phone was in airplane mode, stowed in his jacket pocket. He'd considered switching it off entirely, not wanting to see the endless barrage of venom Alyssa had spewed in text messages over the past few weeks. But the phone was still on him somewhere in the twisted mix of heartbreak, anger, and sheer practicality. He recognized he might need to coordinate details about the divorce from across the world. He tried to close his eyes, hoping he could snatch a bit of rest. Immediately, the memory of that day, the day his happy life died, flashed behind his eyelids. He'd come home from work later than normal. Everything had gone wrong. An important client pitch-bombed, staffers were calling out sick, and rumors circulated that top executives were unimpressed with his team's output. Adding to his tension, the CEO had summoned him for a late meeting that ended with an ultimatum. Take on the Jakarta assignment or find a new company. Dennis, a well-respected star at Vernon Tech for years, felt blindsided, yet he was given a few days to consider. Agitated, he'd driven home in stop-and-go traffic, intending to talk it through with Alyssa. Maybe she'd have some encouraging words like she used to do. They'd been married nearly 13 years, after all, with a 19-year-old daughter Riley, who was now away at college. Usually they'd discuss big decisions in a calm, team-like manner. But the last 3 weeks had been anything but calm. Ever since a fancy cocktail party at the home of Alyssa's colleague, she'd grown unexpectedly cold and argumentative. Dennis recalled that party vividly. Alyssa, in a shimmering silver dress, had spent the entire evening pinned to the side of some smooth-talking younger colleague named Joel Anders. Dennis had first tried to brush it off. She's being friendly. But as the night wore on, it got more blatant touching, giggling, even a borderline, inappropriate dance. When he'd approached them, Alyssa snapped at him for being a jealous stick in the mud. He'd left that party humiliated. Even then, he wouldn't have guessed how far it had gone. But the next 3 weeks at home had been a deep freeze. Alyssa refused to apologize. Instead, she belittled him, acting as if he had humiliated her. It made no sense. He was angry but also confused. Where had his supportive wife gone? That confusion only intensified the day he trudged into the house at 7:30 p.m., exhausted and emotionally raw. He'd been bracing himself for an argument. What he found was Alyssa in an evening gown, practically beaming as she rummaged for car keys. She was going out. Without even a hello, she told him, "Don't wait up. I have a date with Joel." A date. With that asshole from the party. Dennis's entire body had gone numb. He tried to speak, but Alyssa cut him off, saying she was no longer satisfied with their marriage, that she intended to explore something different. She wasn't leaving him permanently, she insisted. But she didn't need his permission either. When he demanded an explanation, she refused to elaborate. "You're just an immature, controlling jerk," she said. "If you'd just open your mind, you'd realize marriage doesn't mean exclusivity." He remembered standing there, mouth open, feeling the line between reality and nightmare dissolve. Did she truly believe that? Her words were so cold. Before he could gather his wits, she breezed past him, out the door. An engine revved, and she was gone. In a daze, he'd climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. That's where his heartbreak and fury fused into one unstoppable force, because their bed carried fresh evidence of a sexual encounter. Sheets twisted, reeking faintly of cologne that wasn't his. Dennis photographed the stained areas, mind reeling. He then methodically packed every item of clothing, valuable and personal document he owned, dumped them all into suitcases until the closet stood half empty, removed half of every financial instrument from their safe, left his wedding ring on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker as he walked out, not even bothering to lock the door. He'd no idea how long he stood in the driveway, staring at the suburban home he'd once loved. But eventually, he drove away in stony silence, ending up at a cheap chain hotel. And so began the unstoppable chain of events that led him to accept Vernon Tech's Jakarta assignment and to vow revenge on Alyssa. Now thousands of feet over the ocean, that memory stabbed him anew, but with an undercurrent of savage determination. He was done being the humiliated husband. Rebecca had told him, "We'll burn her world to ash. Just say the word." Dennis had said the word. He'd said it with gusto. The morning after that catastrophic confrontation, Dennis had rung up his college friend and family attorney, Rebecca Morgan. She was a shark in the courtroom, but with a motherly warmth for the few people she truly cared about. Over strong coffee, he recounted the meltdown in detail, from the near-naked spectacle at the party to Alyssa walking out the door for her date with Joel Anders. Rebecca's face hardened. "You want a divorce on grounds of adultery?" "Yes," Dennis said. "And I want to sue that asshole for alienation of affection if possible." "You sure?" she asked. "That might cost you. Lawyers, investigators, it gets ugly." "I'm sure." He slid over a manila folder containing evidence. Photos of the bed, screenshots of texts from Alyssa basically bragging about going out with Joel, plus references to that party night. "Use all of it. I want them hammered into the ground," Rebecca exhaled. "It'll be war, Dennis." He nodded, jaw tight. "I want that war." She studied him for a moment. "You used to be the sweet guy back in college, a real gentleman. Looks like you're out of mercy." He swallowed. "Alyssa left me none." That afternoon, he made phone calls to sever every joint tie he could. He'd been the one handling most finances, so it was relatively simple to remove her access to the family checking, credit cards, and a chunk of their mutual savings. By the time he was done, he'd effectively locked her out of his economic realm. She still had an individual credit card and her personal checking, but he took satisfaction in knowing her resources were limited. Next, he tackled the matter of their daughter, Riley. She was 19, off at a fancy college out of state, academically gifted. He dialed her dorm phone to break the news. "Your mother is cheating on me, so I'm divorcing her." But the conversation turned into something far uglier. Riley insisted that her mother deserved freedom, that modern marriage didn't demand monogamy. She basically scolded him for living in the past. Shaken and enraged, Dennis realized that Riley fully condoned Alyssa's affair. She called him narrow-minded for daring to protest. It felt like a second betrayal. He told her she was cut off, financially and legally. He could almost feel her stunned silence through the phone. She barked something about how she had every right to side with her mother. He ended the call, numb with heartbreak, and promptly canceled the monthly allotment that had been covering her living expenses. It was brutal, but the fury inside him demanded it. 2 days later, while finalizing the freeze on Alyssa's access to his accounts, Dennis got that call from Vernon Tech's CEO. The company was in the midst of an urgent crisis on a massive project in Jakarta. They needed a top manager to relocate, possibly for 10 to 14 months. And that manager was Dennis. He was, after all, the golden boy of Vernon Tech until recently. His star had slightly dimmed due to internal politics, or so the rumor mill said. But the CEO assured him, "We still believe in you, but it's this assignment or your resignation." Normally, he might have balked. He had no desire to move halfway around the world for that long. But now, it was perfect. Let him vanish overseas while Rebecca hammered Alyssa and Joel stateside. He told the CEO he'd do it. Book the flight. Then came the immediate tasks, retitling his car so he could sell it, emptying a safe deposit box at a local bank, and securing a cheap extended-stay hotel for the final week before departure. During that week, he and Rebecca decided on a plan. She'd gather more explicit evidence of Alyssa's infidelity via any means necessary: private investigators, electronic surveillance. He gave her absolute power of attorney over his personal matters. Then, he quietly disappeared. But even with all that behind him, sitting on this plane chest tight from recycled air and stress, Dennis felt a swirl of unease. Did he truly want to see Alyssa destroyed? A small voice whispered doubts. He'd once loved her, after all, married her wholeheartedly. They had Riley. 13 years was no short fling. Then he remembered the coldness in Alyssa's eyes as she'd declared she was going on a date with Joel. He remembered the mocking texts, the endless arguments where she dismissed his anguish. He remembered the messy bed. That voice of doubt shrank to nothing. She turned on him, spat in his face, figuratively. She wanted to treat him like some old-fashioned fool. Let her choke on the consequences. The same applied to Joel. Dennis never considered himself a vengeful man. Yet betrayal had a way of uncovering the darkest corners of a person's soul. And he was done being naive. If the cost of preserving his dignity and future was an all-out war that left Alyssa in ruins, so be it. He must have drifted off eventually, because the next thing he knew, a flight attendant was nudging him gently, offering a plastic tray of bland airplane lunch. As he sipped watery coffee, a single line from Rebecca's last text scrolled through his mind. "Don't worry, I've got them in my sights. Focus on your assignment. When you get back, the scorched earth awaits." Dennis allowed himself a grim smile. It was close to midnight when the plane touched down at Soekarno-Hatta International Airport. The humidity hit him like a wave as he stepped off, rolling his carry-on behind him. He was greeted by a pair of local Vernon Tech employees who recognized him from his ID photo. They gave polite bows and herded him to a waiting sedan. Jakarta's neon sprawl and chaotic traffic, even late at night, provided a surreal backdrop to his swirling thoughts. He was ushered into a corporate-leased apartment in a high-rise near the city center. Modern, spare furniture, big windows overlooking a labyrinth of lights. The local staff explained the basics. A driver could be arranged if he needed, the building had 24-hour security, etc. Then they left him alone. Standing in the quiet living room, he stared out the window thinking, I'm on the other side of the world, and my wife is in the arms of that bastard. For a fleeting second, sorrow threatened to swamp him. Then he reminded himself of the plan. He'd given Rebecca everything she needed. Now all that was left was time. He rummaged his phone from his pocket, half expecting a barrage of new messages. Sure enough, the screen lit with missed calls, most from unknown numbers, likely Alyssa or Riley, and a few from Kendrick. That last name caused a subtle tension to lift from Dennis's shoulders. Kendrick's calls were probably updates. He'd said he'd install the cameras, collect evidence, and keep Dennis informed. Good. The more data they had, the more unstoppable their case. Dennis decided to connect to Wi-Fi and call Kendrick on an encrypted app. It was mid-afternoon in the States. The phone rang once before a familiar voice answered. "Hey, man," Kendrick said softly. "How was the flight?" "Long. I just got into the apartment. Tired. You?" A pause. "Busy. We got some, pretty wild footage last night." Dennis's stomach tightened. "Yeah?" "Yep," Kendrick said. "Let's just say your wife's not shy about bringing Joel around. The stuff is explicit and there's audio. She's talking shit about you the entire time." Despite bracing himself, a flash of pain seared him. He forced calm into his voice. "Are you logging it all?" "Absolutely. I'm archiving every second. Also, I found out Joel's been bragging around her workplace. Well, used to brag. Word is, rumors got to the higher-ups." "Good. The deeper they dig that hole, the better for us." They spoke a bit longer, going over details of the camera feed. Then Kendrick added a final note. "Oh, and Alyssa got served the preliminary divorce papers at her job's lobby this morning. She freaked. Tried calling you, no surprise." Dennis closed his eyes. "Good. Let her stew." Ending the call, Dennis wandered to the small kitchenette. He rummaged for water, gulping it down. The dryness in his throat wasn't just from the flight. He realized with final clarity, there is no going back. Alyssa was done. Their marriage was finished in every sense. That poor, hopeful version of himself from a month ago, who would have jumped through hoops to fix the cracks, was gone. That man died the moment he found their bed defiled. Another hour passed in restless pacing. He unpacked only what was necessary. On his phone, he typed a quick message to Rebecca. "I've landed. Keep me posted on everything. Spare me no details." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji and, "They'll be sorry. We'll make them pay." Finally, he forced himself to get some sleep in the unfamiliar bed. Tomorrow, he'd begin official duties at Vernon Tech's Jakarta branch, and behind the scenes, the wrath he'd set in motion would continue devouring Alyssa's illusions. Sleep didn't come easily. He dozed, swirling in half-lucid dreams of that night. The party was at a colleague's mansion. Bright lights, a small band, dozens of well-dressed professionals sipping cocktails. He recalled the flicker of confusion when he looked around after stepping away for a moment and realized Alyssa had vanished. Then he spotted her near the patio door, giggling at something Joel said, her hand on his forearm. He remembered walking over, expecting her to say, "Oh, Dennis, there you are." Instead, she brushed him off, saying, "You're being antisocial. Go mingle or something, honey." That was a red flag, but he tried to laugh it off. Over the next hour, each time he approached, she became more frosty. He retreated at one point to the restroom, splashing water on his face. Am I imagining this? Until he emerged and found them basically pressed to each other by a decorative column, Joel's hand on her waist, lips dangerously close. A small cluster of onlookers gave them wide-eyed stares, some smirking at the drama. Dennis had forcibly guided Alyssa away, driving home in furious silence. Her reaction? Outrage that he'd embarrassed her. She insisted it was just drunk flirting. No big deal. That same night marked the start of her 3-week rampage of gaslighting him. And now it had culminated in an open affair. He woke at dawn, sweaty, jaw clenched. You'll regret underestimating me, he vowed. Because they would. Joel, Alyssa, anyone who tried to make him the fool. Jakarta mornings were vibrant. Sunlight filtered through the high-rise curtains, accompanied by the hum of scooters and cars jamming the streets below. Dennis rose, showered quickly, and prepared to head to the local Vernon Tech office. As he adjusted his tie, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Gone was the mild, easygoing man who once believed in the unconditional bond of marriage. In his eyes, he saw a sharper edge, a controlled anger. He left the apartment, stepping into a chauffeured car arranged by the local staff. They whisked him through congested streets to the towering building that housed Vernon Tech's satellite headquarters in Indonesia. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Court date for initial hearing is set, 2 weeks from now. I got your back. Another from Kendrick. Got more footage last night. She's basically moved him in. Dennis typed a short response. Collect it all. No mercy. Outside, the tropical heat bore down on him, but inside, a chill sense of purpose guided his every step. Alyssa might think she was living some liberated fantasy with Joel. She had no idea how steep the cost was about to become. And Dennis, resolute, wouldn't be deterred. Chapter 2. At the Vernon Tech Jakarta branch, Dennis walked in wearing a calm, authoritative demeanor. He was introduced to various department heads, local engineering managers, logistics specialists, translators. The project had multiple moving parts, supply chain issues, partner negotiations, tight deadlines. Everyone eyed him with curiosity, some with relief because they knew a senior project manager from HQ had arrived to fix their fiasco. He swiftly arranged a meeting schedule, requesting data, reading project briefs. If Alyssa and Joel thought his heartbreak would derail him, they were mistaken. He channeled his emotional turmoil into laser focus at work. And it worked wonders. By midday, he was fielding calls, delegating tasks, and reorganizing teams. He had no time or mental space to dwell on Tyr's only anger-fueled efficiency. Shortly after lunch, his phone vibrated with a message from Kendrick. Got something you'll want to see. Check your secure drive. Dennis excused himself from the meeting room, stepped into a quiet corridor, and opened the encrypted app. There, a set of new files labeled Living Room Cam awaited. Each file included timestamps from the previous evening. He hesitated. Do I really want to watch my wife with her lover? But necessity trumped squeamishness. The law required strong evidence. He clicked play on a short clip, grainy but clear enough. There was Alyssa, wearing only a robe, straddling Joel on the living room couch. Joel's voice came through faintly. That old bastard is out of the picture, right? Alyssa laughed. He's probably sulking in a hotel. I'm so done with him. Then a pointed sneer. He didn't satisfy me anyway. Dennis's vision tunneled. His teeth clenched so hard it hurt. He forced himself to keep watching, ensuring there was no question of what they were doing. The final seconds of the clip ended with Joel bragging about his marketing job success. Should have done this months ago, babe. Alyssa's husky reply. We can do whatever we want now. Swallowing back bile, Dennis exhaled. So that's their arrogance. He shot a message to Kendrick. Continue capturing. This is perfect. Then, forcing composure, he rejoined his meeting. No break in his facade. If anything, he felt sharper, more motivated to crush them. After hours, Dennis called Rebecca. It was early morning for her in the States, but she picked up on the second ring. "Hey, you see the new videos?" "Yes," he said, voice tight. "Use them. Every second." She exhaled. "I already planned to. Also, I'll be sending official subpoenas to Alyssa's and Joel's workplaces, requesting documentation like their personnel files, possible emails." He frowned. "Emails?" She explained. "If Alyssa used her work account to flirt or arrange meetups, that could lead to her firing, or at least weigh heavily in court. Company resources for personal affairs is frowned upon. As for Joel, we have evidence from his ex-girlfriend that he's run shady deals. My contact at the marketing firm might help confirm that." Dennis felt a grim satisfaction. Good. The deeper they sink, the better. "That's not all," Rebecca continued. "We're also pushing for a freeze on marital assets so she can't liquidate anything. So if she tries to sell the house or any big property without your consent, she's violating court orders. Keep in mind, it'll take a judge to confirm it. But I'm confident." "Excellent," he said, then quieter. "You know, part of me still can't believe we're here." Rebecca's tone softened. "I know, but trust me, you're doing the right thing." They hung up, and Dennis gripped his phone, feeling an odd relief. Knowing that professionals like Rebecca and dedicated allies like Kendrick had his back gave him clarity. If Alyssa wanted war, she'd get it. That evening, he ate dinner alone in a corner of the bustling hotel restaurant. The flavors of Indonesian cuisine, spicy sambal, fragrant rice were new to him, yet he barely tasted them. His mind reeled with images from the video footage, mixing with recollections of happier times. Alyssa smiling at him on their wedding day, or cheering him on at a half-marathon he ran years ago. Where did that woman go? He wondered bitterly. How did it turn into this fiasco? He remembered hearing some couples overcame affairs, that they forgave and rebuilt. But the betrayal here went beyond a moment of weakness. Alyssa's cruelty, her open contempt, was the final straw. She didn't just cheat, she reveled in humiliating him. No going back. The more he repeated that, the more certain he became. He forced a small portion of dinner down, paid the bill, then returned to the corporate apartment. For the next 3 hours, he pored over project documents, ignoring any personal calls. The adrenaline that fueled him at work now turned into an edgy restlessness. He tried not to dwell on how Alyssa might be spending her evening. Instead, he compiled a list of names for Rebecca people who might provide insight into Joel's character. Old classmates, mutual acquaintances. If she needed depositions, he'd line them up. The following day at the office, Dennis was called into a conference call with Vernon Tech's CEO and some board members. They wanted updates on the Jakarta project's status. He delivered a succinct progress report highlighting his changes in the local management structure. The CEO sounded pleased. After the call, the CEO asked Dennis to stay on the line. "Heard about some personal issues you're facing," the man said carefully. "I wanted to see if you're okay." Dennis swallowed. He hadn't expected personal concern from the big boss. "I appreciate it, sir. I'm handling it. I'm told you're divorcing. I heard, certain rumors. Adultery, lawsuits." The CEO hesitated, then added, "Just want you to know, the company is behind you. If you need resources or legal references, let me know. We value your talents, Dennis. Hang in there." Shocked, Dennis muttered a polite thank you. He never imagined Vernon Tech would weigh in on his marriage meltdown. But apparently, news traveled fast, or someone higher up recognized how critical he was to the company's success. That support meant more leverage if needed. Hanging up, he had a fleeting sense of vindication. Alyssa might think she was unstoppable, but Dennis had a powerful corporation quietly backing him. Joel was just a low-tier marketing schmuck with no real clout. At midnight, while reviewing some leftover spreadsheets, Dennis's phone pinged again with secure messages from Kendrick. Another wave of footage and text logs. Alyssa had apparently begun trash-talking Dennis to her best friend, claiming he was pathetic, small-minded. She planned to start dating openly. Joel had even spent the night in the master bedroom twice more that week. One screenshot showed a text from Alyssa to Joel. "He's probably too cowardly to confront us face to face. That's why he ran away." Joel's response: "Works for us, babe. We can do anything now." Dennis's grip tightened on the phone. Cowardly? So that's how they saw him. They had no clue about the legal hurricane about to slam them. That ignorance made it all the more satisfying. The next morning, Rebecca forwarded him a link to Riley's social media post, a long rant about abusive, controlling fathers who think they own women. She never mentioned Dennis by name, but it was obvious. The comments were mixed. Some friends cheered her on, others questioned if she was oversimplifying. The entire spectacle twisted the knife in Dennis's chest. He'd cherished his daughter. Yet here she was, publicly shaming him based on Alyssa's twisted narrative. He typed a message to Rebecca. "I want you to keep that in mind if we do any custody or future financial settlement with her. They might not have a minor child, but disowning her might still face legal tangles." Rebecca reassured him. "We'll handle it. She's an adult. She can pick her side, but she won't get your money for it." Dennis let out a harsh breath. "It's the two of them against me now." Fine. He had no illusions of family unity left. If his daughter wanted to see him as the villain, so be it. Forced sale of the house. Late that night, he found himself pacing the living room again, the city lights below him. He pictured the house back in the States, the quaint two-story, where he and Alyssa had lived for a decade. He'd been proud of that place. Now he wanted to see it sold, all equity in his pocket, leaving Alyssa on the curb. The law was on his side, especially once they proved her fault in the divorce. In many states, infidelity could tilt property division, and with Joel's involvement, an alienation suit could bring in major damages. He texted Rebecca. After the initial hearing, push for immediate sale of the house. "I want no foot in that place," she replied with a thumbs up. A minute later, he wrote a final thought. "And if we can, I want them publicly served at her workplace or at a big event." She answered, "We'll see what's feasible, but yes, a public humiliation can boost our leverage." A final grin. Let them sweat. Let their colleagues see the meltdown. After all, Alyssa had no problem humiliating him in front of half the neighborhood and co-workers at that party. 3 days later, a breathless email arrived from Rebecca. Update: Alyssa got suspended at her job. Possibly over fraternization with Joel. They apparently found some questionable emails. Also, Joel might be on the chopping block at his marketing firm. Dennis stared at the text, feeling an exhilaration he'd never experienced. She was paying the price for ignoring professional boundaries. Perfect. He recalled how Alyssa once prided herself on her career. She told him she wouldn't be just a housewife. He'd admired that independence. Now, ironically, her independence from moral constraints was wrecking her professional life. The poetic justice was delicious. That evening, as tropical storms battered the city, thunder rattling the windows, Dennis sat with a glass of whiskey on his small balcony. He gazed at the swirling dark clouds, reflecting on how swiftly everything had changed. A month ago, He was a naive husband ignoring red flags, thinking the tension with Alyssa might blow over. Now, he was orchestrating a full-scale legal takedown from across the globe. He recalled a quote he'd heard somewhere, "When you tear out a man's heart, you turn him into something else." That was how he felt something else. No longer the gentle, trusting partner, but a strategic avenger, pressing every advantage with unwavering ruthlessness. He raised his glass in a silent toast to the storm. "You wanted me gone, Alyssa," he murmured. "You're about to find out how gone I can be." Chapter 3. 2 weeks into Dennis's assignment, the flood of evidence from Kendrick continued unabated. Alyssa had grown bolder, ironically, even as she faced suspension at work. She was bringing Joel into the house daily sometimes for hours at a stretch and openly discussing with him how worthless Dennis was. The footage caught them rummaging through drawers in search of any valuables Dennis might have left behind. They joked about selling his old watch or sports memorabilia. It made Dennis's blood boil. He'd share these updates with Rebecca, who assured him, "The more brazen they act, the easier it is for us to prove malicious intent." Also, with Alyssa on indefinite leave, she was hemorrhaging money. She might try to do something drastic soon, like selling possessions or dipping into savings. But they'd locked down most joint assets. That left her personal account, which wouldn't last long, with no income. One bright Monday morning, Alyssa's phone exploded with new messages. She'd just arrived at her workplace, attempting to argue her suspension, when a process server stepped in front of her in the lobby. He handed her a thick envelope containing official divorce documents, plus a separate summons for Joel. A small crowd of onlooking employees watched as she stood speechless, then erupted in a fit, flinging the papers on the floor. Rebecca texted Dennis the play-by-play. "She tried to refuse the docs, but it's official. She also cursed your name in front of half the staff." Dennis allowed himself a slight grim chuckle in the privacy of his Jakarta office. Exactly the humiliation he'd hoped for. But it didn't stop there. Joel, too, was served with an alienation of affection suit at his marketing firm. Rumor had it his boss, already unhappy with the swirling gossip, demanded Joel clear out his desk. "We can't have you hooking up with a client's manager," they said. The morality clause in his contract was enough to justify immediate dismissal. By midday, Joel was jobless, Alyssa was suspended, and the entire fiasco was the talk of both offices. Meanwhile, Riley posted an enraged screed on social media about how her father was a monster for launching lawsuits. The post included half-truths about him cutting her off financially. Comments poured in from her friends, some in support, some pointing out she was adult enough to earn her own keep. The meltdown soared to new levels when Alyssa apparently confided in Riley that she might lose the house. Riley panicked, calling relatives for help. Many told her they wouldn't get involved because it was between your parents. In the swirl of it all, Dennis refused to read the entire drama. Kendrick summarized the highlights. "Riley's basically flailing, man. She's discovered you froze her tuition funds, and her mom can't help." Dennis felt a slight pang of guilt, but hardened himself. She chose her side. If she apologized and came to her senses, maybe he'd reconsider. But for now, she'd be an adult who faced adult consequences. A few days later, Dennis's phone lit up with a U.S. number he didn't recognize. He let it go to voicemail. The message was from Joel, of all people, sounding shaky. "Dennis, man, can we talk? This is Joel. Look, there's no reason for these lawsuits. This is just a misunderstanding. I think we can come to an arrangement." An arrangement? The nerve of that scumbag? Dennis sneered, deleting the message. Then he forwarded a copy to Rebecca. "He wants an arrangement?" She texted back. "I bet he's going to beg for dropping the alienation suit. We have no reason to relent. We can bury him." That was precisely what Dennis intended. That same week, Kendrick introduced a new puzzle piece. He'd discovered some suspicious references in the home's mortgage statements. The monthly payment had jumped slightly 6 months prior. Yet, Dennis never signed any refinance documents. "Might be forging your signature," Kendrick speculated. Dennis's stomach flipped. If Alyssa had refinanced the house behind his back illegally, that was not just grounds for a nasty divorce settlement. It could be a felony. He told Kendrick to coordinate with Rebecca, who could pull property records. If they confirmed forgery, Alyssa would be in serious criminal jeopardy. The thought made Dennis's heart pound, a mixture of anger at her duplicity and excitement at the potential hammer blow this would deliver. Rebecca's daily updates painted a picture of Alyssa's meltdown. Facing indefinite suspension, her savings rapidly depleting, and a looming divorce battle, she was practically in crisis mode. Joel, newly fired, offered no real financial support. They bickered constantly, with the cameras capturing heated arguments. At one point, Joel ranted, "You said you'd stand by me if I left my job. Now I'm broke. We need cash." Alyssa screamed back that it was Dennis's fault. But they both realized Dennis had locked everything down tight. She threatened to kick Joel out if he didn't help. The irony was thick, given how they'd smugly united to spurn Dennis. Now they were turning on each other under the weight of his carefully orchestrated legal war. Meanwhile, the mortgage fraud suspicion loomed like a powder keg. If proven, it would blow up everything Alyssa clung to. In Jakarta, Dennis barely paused from his project duties to process the satisfaction of these revelations. But behind his calm exterior, he was all steel. People at the office noticed he'd become somewhat colder, more direct. "He's no nonsense," they whispered, half impressed, half intimidated. He carried the same attitude to each conference call with the head office, guaranteeing that Vernon Tech's issues were resolved quickly and effectively. That unwavering discipline mirrored how he hammered Alyssa in legal terms. She wanted him gone. He was gone, physically, but his vengeance was unstoppable. He saw no conflict in dedicating himself to the company while simultaneously orchestrating her downfall. In fact, the synergy fueled him. The better he performed at Vernon Tech, the more resources and goodwill he had, and the more he wanted to bury her. Another explicit video. One evening, though, Dennis's composure was tested. Kendrick sent him a highlight reel footage of Joel and Alyssa engaged in explicit acts, all the while mocking Dennis's sexual prowess. The vile commentary included lines about how he'd probably never had a real woman, or that he was too dull in bed. As if that wasn't humiliating enough, Alyssa listed reasons she settled for him, referencing his stable paycheck, not love or passion. Dennis watched in stony silence, anger thrumming through every nerve. But he refused to give them the victory of emotional breakdown. Instead, he forwarded the entire clip to Rebecca with a single note, "Use it." She replied, "We will. This is gold." Legally speaking, it established Alyssa's complete disregard for the marriage and her ongoing intimacy with Joel. Enough to kill any chance she might have had for a favorable settlement. Enough to destroy her credibility in court when she'd inevitably claim misunderstandings. Still, in the dim hush of his Jakarta apartment that night, Dennis allowed himself a single moment of raw rage. He clenched a fist, slammed it onto a kitchen counter. A trembling wave passed through him. "I gave her everything," he whispered. "She spat on it." Then he inhaled deeply, exhaled, and repeated, "No turning back." The moment passed, replaced by an icy calm. Rebecca announced the date for the initial court hearing, 2 weeks away. She needed Dennis's presence if possible, but understood he was overseas. They agreed that since he had given her full power of attorney, she could represent him thoroughly. She'd call him in for remote testimony if needed. Meanwhile, she recommended they petition for a restraining order preventing Alyssa from disposing of any communal property, especially the house pending final resolution. In the background, they readied a second suit, alienation of affection for Joel, seeking substantial damages. Typically, these suits were tricky, but the explicit evidence and the brazen timeline were compelling. And if they uncovered mortgage fraud on top of it, it could be catastrophic for Alyssa's credibility. Dennis was more than content with that. At the same time, a new figure emerged in Dennis's professional sphere. Brianna Frost, a formidable Vernon tech executive who'd just arrived in Jakarta to oversee expansions. She introduced herself after a major briefing, extending a firm handshake. "Heard you're the hotshot who came to save us," she said with a half-smile. He offered a polite shrug. "Just doing my job." Over the next days, they worked closely. Brianna quickly proved herself sharp, unafraid to tackle challenges. During a post-work conversation, she revealed she knew about his personal turmoil. "Office gossip reaches me fast," she said softly. "I heard your wife is out of line. I hope you bury her if she's that toxic." Dennis blinked. "That's direct." "I have zero tolerance for cheaters," Brianna replied, eyes flashing. "Long story. If you need any specialized corporate assistance like financial investigations or internal audits, I can help." He was intrigued. "You'd do that?" She shrugged. "If it helps keep Vernon Tech's star player focused, then yes." The subtle glint in her gaze told him she wasn't lying. Another resource in his corner. He nodded gratefully, thinking. Alyssa has no idea how many knives are pointed her way. Chapter 4. Mortgage fraud confirmed. A midweek phone call from Rebecca was more electric than usual. "Dennis, we confirmed it. The refinance from 6 months ago? Alyssa's signature is real, but yours is forged. She used some notary who's apparently under suspicion for shady dealings. We have an affidavit from the bank officer who says they never saw you in person." Dennis felt a surge of triumph. "So that's a felony, right?" Rebecca's voice brimmed with satisfaction. "Sure is. At minimum, a severe offense. We can push the DA to investigate, which might lead to criminal charges. This is bigger than just a messy divorce. She could go to prison." For a second, he was stunned. Prison? Part of him balked. Did he actually want the mother of his child behind bars? Then he recalled the vile mocking, the scorn, the absolute disregard for their marriage or his feelings. He pictured her smirking face. "Do it," he said. "Let's bring it to the DA if necessary." With the hearing a week away, Alyssa's panic escalated. She tried calling Dennis multiple times, leaving voicemails that swung between anger, tears, and threats. "If you think you can just leave me homeless, you're wrong!" she shrieked in one. "I'll fight you with everything I have." Another message sounded oddly pitiful. "Dennis, don't do this. We can talk." He never answered. He saved each voicemail, forwarding them to Rebecca. The short answer was, no negotiations. Let her squirm. Let her realize how thoroughly he'd cut her off from any mercy. Even if she wanted to settle now, he had no interest in giving her a gentle way out. Meanwhile, Joel's repeated calls for a compromise also went unanswered. On one message, Joel sounded near tears, complaining that Alyssa was driving him nuts and that this is all your fault for not letting us be. The hypocrisy made Dennis want to laugh. You sleep with another man's wife and then blame him for your misery? Kendrick updated Dennis about the house's internal cameras. "We've got enough footage to fill a library. I'm going to do a final backup. After that, we might not need more." Indeed, they had countless hours of Alyssa and Joel's explicit conduct and damning conversations. The impetus was to present only the highlights in court, but keep the rest in case Alyssa or Joel tried to lie about timelines or specifics. Kendrick also discovered more unsavory details on Joel's background. Multiple credit card debts, allegations from previous girlfriends, possibly some small-time scams. He's basically a con artist who saw Alyssa as a meal ticket, Kendrick said. But the joke's on him because she's going broke. Dennis's lips curved. Perfect irony. Corporate Reinforcement 1 afternoon, Brianna knocked on Dennis's office door. She entered, placed a folder on his desk. Here's some data the finance division uncovered about possible local expansions. By the way, I made a couple calls back home. Heard rumors that Alyssa might try filing some bogus complaint to sabotage your standing at Vernon Tech. Something about you forging her signature. Dennis's brow rose. That's insane. She's the one who forged mine. Exactly, Brianna said dryly. Anyway, the higher-ups know. They're basically laughing it off. If she tries anything, she'll fail. You're well-liked, especially after you took on this Jakarta mess and started turning it around. She paused. Look, I don't want to meddle in your personal life. But from the bits I hear, your wife and her lover are in a free-fall. He gave a short nod. That's the plan. Brianna gave a half-smile. Just keep your head clear. We need your brilliance on this project. Dennis recognized genuine concern behind her brisk tone. Thanks, he said. I appreciate it. Another ally in his corner, he thought. Alyssa's attempts to smear him wouldn't gain traction. Rebecca texted him at 5 a.m. Jakarta time. Afternoon in the U.S. Heading into court. We'll call you after. The next few hours were agonizing. Dennis forced himself into back-to-back meetings to stifle his impatience. Finally, around midnight his time, the phone buzzed. It was Rebecca, exhausted but triumphant. She rattled off the hearing's highlights. Alyssa appeared with her attorney, tried to claim the marriage was salvageable, and that Dennis abandoned her. Rebecca presented the explicit video still frames, demonstrating Alyssa had begun an affair well before Dennis moved out. The judge wasn't impressed with Alyssa's tearful pleas or attempts at deflection. They introduced the mortgage fraud suspicion. Although it's a separate matter, the judge took note. The judge granted an injunction preventing Alyssa from touching or selling the marital home or any major assets until the final ruling. Joel was served a fresh summons for additional discovery in the alienation suit. Alyssa apparently lost her composure, screaming that Dennis never loved her and that this was all a setup. The judge threatened to hold her in contempt if she didn't calm down. Rebecca ended with, all in all, a great day for us. We proceed to final trial in about a month or so, depending on scheduling. Dennis let out a slow breath. You did well. Thanks, Rebecca. Her voice softened. When I told the judge about the forgery possibility, you should have seen Alyssa's face. She panicked. Her lawyer tried to disclaim knowledge. He smiled grimly. One step closer to the finish line. News traveled fast around the local community. People who once admired Alyssa for her professional polish whispered about the spectacle in court. Joel, meanwhile, was rumored to be couch surfing, as his job was gone and Alyssa couldn't cover rent. The comedic tragedy of it made Dennis's night. He went to bed, letting the roiling satisfaction lull him to a strangely peaceful sleep. A day later, during a break at the Jakarta office, his phone buzzed. The caller ID said, Riley. He considered ignoring it, but after a moment's hesitation, he answered. Dad? She said, voice quivering. We talk? He kept his tone neutral. What do you want? A sniffle. Everything's blowing up. Mom might lose the house. She's talking about possible prison. Joel's worthless. My tuition's overdue. Maybe I was wrong to side with them. Dennis inhaled, wrestling conflicting emotions. This was his child, but she'd been so cruel. Riley, you made your bed, supporting your mother's affair. Are you truly sorry, or do you just want money? I'm sorry, she mumbled. I believed her side of the story, that you were controlling. I see now I was wrong. She lied about so much. He steeled himself. If you're genuine, I'll consider partial help with tuition if you keep your distance from your mother's schemes. I want no sabotage. She agreed in a tearful rush. Thank you, Dad. I do love you. He ended the call, unsettled but also somewhat relieved. Maybe not all was lost with Riley. Still, trust was not something he'd hand over freely. That same evening, Joel himself texted Dennis, claiming he wanted an off-the-record chat, man to man. Dennis scoffed. He had no interest in negotiations that let Joel off the hook. He forwarded the text to Rebecca. He's flailing. Should I respond? She replied, no. Let him sweat. He might want a settlement. We hold the cards, not him. Perfect. The less he engaged, the more desperate Joel would become. While the meltdown continued back home, Dennis's star rose further at Vernon Tech. He overcame supply chain delays in Jakarta, closed deals with local vendors, and earned praise from the regional director. The CEO called once more to congratulate him, hinting at a possible promotion. You're unstoppable, Dennis, the CEO said. Keep it up. We'll talk next quarter about next steps for you. It was almost surreal. On one side, his personal life was a raging bonfire, yet professionally, he was excelling. The dissonance only fed his determination. Let Alyssa stew in the ashes while he soared. One night, with the city's neon reflection dancing on his apartment windows, Dennis gave himself permission to feel. He turned off the overhead lights, sat in a chair, and stared at the skyline. Bits of heartbreak still flickered in his chest despite everything. A part of him grieved the once-loathing woman he thought Alyssa was. But he'd severed that hope. Her mockery, her choices, her betrayal, and the forging of his signature for a refinance loan, each was a dagger to the heart. No, there'd be no reconciliation, no pity, no forgiveness. With the final trial about a month away, he planned to keep his foot on her neck. If she ended up in jail, so be it. If Joel ended up bankrupt, perfect. They'd torched his life, so why not torch theirs in return? The city outside pulsed with life. He felt more alive than ever, ironically like he'd shed his illusions, emerging a sharper, stronger version of himself. Rising from the chair, he poured a measure of whiskey, raised it to the glittering skyline. Here's to the war, he whispered, and to winning it. Chapter 5. The day after the preliminary court hearing, Alyssa Devereaux woke up on a lumpy couch in a cramped rental apartment that wasn't even hers. It belonged to an old friend from her high school days. The friend, a weary divorcee named Marjorie, had offered her a temporary crash pad, but with little enthusiasm. Alyssa's funds had dried up, her credit cards nearly maxed after the indefinite suspension from her job. She was behind on car payments. Stress weighed on her like a crushing anchor. Joel Anders, her lover and co-conspirator in this fiasco, had basically moved in with her, though moved in was a generous phrase. He spent half the day wandering aimlessly, whining about his own job loss. The heat in the small apartment was stifling, the air conditioner broken. They bickered incessantly. "Why are you glaring at me?" Joel spat one morning, rummaging in a half-empty fridge for a can of cheap beer. "You're the one who said we'd make it work. Now look at us." Alyssa glowered. "Maybe if you'd hold up your end instead of slumping around complaining, we'd find some solution. We have mounting legal bills." "Your legal bills," Joel snapped, slamming the fridge door. "I'm just roped in because your psycho husband—" She tossed him a venomous look. Exuse ban soon, she corrected. And you're absolutely part of this. Did you forget he's suing you for alienation of affection? They glared at each other. For a fleeting moment, Alyssa recalled the excitement she once felt around Joel, how it felt fun to flirt with a younger, confident man at that fancy party. Now, that memory made her stomach churn with regret. She never imagined Dennis would go nuclear. She underestimated him. She'd seen him as mild-mannered, easy to manipulate. That was a colossal mistake. And Joel, for all his earlier bravado, was simply a millstone around her neck. Alyssa slumped into a battered armchair, face in her hands. She needed a miracle. Her phone chimed. A quick glance showed it was her attorney, Monica. "Hello?" she said into the phone, dreading the next piece of bad news. "Your next status hearing is set in about 3 weeks," Monica informed her. "I'm going to need updated financial disclosures from you, tax returns, bank statements, everything. Dennis's side has hammered us with requests for production," Alyssa groaned. "I can't even pay you for last month. Monica, we have to find a way out. This entire thing is unfair. Dennis is burying me." Monica's voice turned impatient. "The judge isn't sympathetic, not after the footage your husband's counsel presented. It's extremely damning. Also, there's talk of potential mortgage fraud. If you did sign a refi using Dennis's forged signature, that's criminal territory." Alyssa's heart pounded. "But I needed extra money at the time. It was just a bit of creative paperwork. Can't we, discredit that?" "Creative paperwork?" Monica exclaimed. "If the DA picks it up, you could face felony charges. You need to think carefully about a plea deal or settlement with Dennis. Maybe you can avoid the worst if you show remorse." Remorse. Alyssa bristled at the thought of begging Dennis. Yet her mind whirled with images of potential jail time. "I'm not going to prison," she whispered, voice trembling. Monica was silent a moment, then said, "We'll see what we can do. But you have to cooperate fully with me. No more stunts. And if Joel has relevant documents, get them to me. Otherwise, we're dead in the water." Alyssa hung up, eyes stinging. Behind her, Joel cracked open the beer with a hiss. She wanted to scream that this was all his fault, but deep down, she knew her own choices had lit the match. One thing was certain. Dennis was playing for keeps, and she had no clue how to stop him. Meanwhile, in Jakarta, Dennis was sitting in a video conference with local staffers when his phone buzzed. Seeing it was Kendrick, he excused himself and stepped out to answer. "Morning, man," Kendrick said. "I've got some updates that might interest you straight from your wife's bank statements and credit card logs. We discovered multiple cash advances over the last year, presumably to fund Joel's personal debts." Dennis felt a pulse of satisfaction. "She was funneling money to that leech?" "Looks like it," Kendrick confirmed. "And a chunk of it happened before you moved out. That means partial misappropriation of marital funds. On top of that, we suspect Joel used your old house for private gambling sessions with a couple of shady buddies." Dennis inhaled sharply. "You're kidding." "Nope. The camera in the living room caught them playing high-stakes poker one night while Alyssa was out, stacks of cash on the table. Hard to see the exact amounts, but definitely a chunk of change. Did you ever authorize that?" "Of course not." "Of course not." Dennis's voice was cold. This was pure gold for legal angles. "Document everything, especially the dates. I'll forward it to Rebecca." "You got it." Also, rumor from one of Joel's ex-associates is that he might file for personal bankruptcy soon to dodge the alienation suit. Dennis smirked bitterly. "He can try. I doubt the court will let him off that easy." They discussed more details. Dennis hung up, mood lifted by the knowledge that Alyssa and Joel's scheme was unraveling further. Good. Let them drown in the consequences. Later that same evening, Dennis was finishing up at the Jakarta office when Brianna Frost appeared in his doorway. She wore a crisp blouse, her expression focused. "I heard you discovered more financial dirt on your wife and that paramour." He blinked, momentarily startled she knew so much. Then he remembered they'd had casual conversations about the fiasco. Brianna had proven quite a confidant. "Yeah," he said. "They're apparently neck-deep in more wrongdoing." She shut the door gently. "I have a cousin who's a forensic accountant stateside. If you want, I can have him provide a complimentary overview to your legal team, help them trace those suspicious transactions more effectively." Dennis's eyebrows rose. "Really? You'd do that?" Brianna shrugged. "Sure. Vernon Tech's interest is that you remain stable and productive. If burying your wife in legal proof is how that happens, so be it." He felt a stir of gratitude. "I appreciate it. Let's do it." She gave a firm nod. "I'll send you his contact. I hope you tear them to shreds." "Dennis, I genuinely do." He studied her, seeing a flicker of empathy in her eyes. "Thank you." A wry smile curved her lips. "You're welcome. People who cheat like that rarely consider how devastating their betrayal is. Someone has to teach them." Those words resonated deeply. Alyssa had casually trampled on their marriage. Now it was time she learned the cost. "Amen to that," he said quietly. Back in the States, Riley nervously tapped at her laptop, typing out a draft of a letter. She intended to email it to her father. 2 days had passed since her emotional phone call with him, where he'd demanded sincerity if she wanted any financial help again. She was determined to prove she meant it. "Dad," she typed, "I know you have every reason not to trust me right now. I'm sorry for what I said online, calling you controlling, painting you as the villain. I was influenced by Mom's stories. She told me you were stifling her, that you were old-fashioned and tried to limit her happiness. I believed it because I've always seen you as the strict father figure. And Mom used to be more easygoing with me." She paused, tears pricking her eyes. "But after seeing how everything unfolded, I realized she twisted the truth. She's done things I can't defend. I won't lie, I love her, she's my mom. But I don't support her affair or the way she humiliated you. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I truly want to restore our relationship. I'm not expecting unlimited funds, just enough to keep me from losing my spot in college. Please believe me. Dad, I'm sorry." She ended it with a trembling sigh. "Love, Riley." After reviewing it 6 times, she pressed send. Then she waited, heart pounding. She knew Dennis might reject her, but she had to try. Without his support or a scholarship, she faced dropping out, and despite her anger at the entire situation, she missed having a father she respected. Dennis saw Riley's email pop up on his phone the following morning. He was in the back seat of a company car on the way to a contract signing with local partners. The subject line read, "Apology and explanation." He stared at it for a full minute before clicking. As he read, an odd mix of emotions churned in him: hurt, hope, anger, longing. By the time he reached the final line, his chest felt tight. Riley sounded sincere. She admitted she'd been swayed by Alyssa's manipulations. She said she was sorry, that she wanted to mend fences. He typed a quick reply. "Riley, I appreciate your words. I'm not sure how soon I can trust you again, but I see you're trying. I'll consider partial assistance for your tuition if you stay out of your mother's legal drama. No more hateful posts. No more siding with her attempts to sabotage me. Show me you're serious and we can talk more." He hesitated, then added, "I still love you, but I won't let myself be used. That's final." Then he hit send. There. A small step toward bridging the gap. Yet he was ready to withdraw if she betrayed him again. That afternoon, Rebecca scheduled a video call with Dennis to update him on new developments. The moment his face appeared on her screen, she launched into it. "Joel filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. evidently trying to mitigate potential damages from the alienation suit. However, we can argue that a large portion of the suit pertains to willful misconduct. Debts from moral or intentional torts aren't always dischargeable. We'll fight it. Dennis nodded, lips thinning. He's scuttling to avoid paying up. Correct. But Chapter 13 is reorganization, not a full discharge. We can push the court to treat your judgment as non-dischargeable if we prove it arises from malicious wrongdoing. We have evidence that he openly flaunted your wife's adultery, mocked you, and contributed to the dissolution of the marriage in a purposeful, humiliating manner. That can be framed as willful harm. Dennis's eyes hardened. Good. I want no loopholes for him. Rebecca smirked. We'll see him in bankruptcy court if needed. It's extra litigation, but I'm game if you are. Absolutely. Let's not let him off the hook. In addition to the mounting legal fiasco, Alyssa was experiencing a social collapse. Word had spread among neighbors, ex-colleagues, and acquaintances that she'd cheated on her devoted husband, lied about finances, and was now embroiled in potential mortgage fraud. People who used to greet her warmly at church or the supermarket turned away or offered cold stares. She tried calling her sister in another state, but the conversation was terse. Alyssa, I can't believe what I'm hearing, the sister said. You had an affair with that guy, Joel, and now you're facing felony allegations? Alyssa tried to spin it, claiming Dennis was an emotionally abusive prude. But the sister didn't buy it. You know, Dennis was always decent to you from everything we saw. I'm sorry, but I can't help you if this is how you've chosen to live. Click. One by one, the pillars of Alyssa's old life fell away, leaving her isolated. Joel fared no better. His old buddies treated him like a walking disaster zone, and the new acquaintances he'd been gambling with demanded their money. Tension built like a thundercloud. Furious arguments at the cramped apartment erupted daily. Marjorie, the friend who owned the place, was close to kicking them out. Late in Jakarta's evening, Dennis found himself strolling through a local market, picking up fresh fruit. He'd worked a grueling day, but the deal with a major Indonesian supplier had concluded successfully, adding further luster to his reputation within Vernon Tech. All the while, updates trickled in about Alyssa's meltdown, Joel's bankruptcy fiasco, and Riley's uncertain attempts at reconciliation. The swirl of triumph made him stand a bit taller, even if a quiet sense of sadness lingered. Could he truly be happy with this path of total destruction? He'd chosen it. He believed it was necessary. But a twinge of regret flickered. Not regret for punishing her, he felt that was justified. Perhaps regret for losing the dream of the family he once treasured. He paused by a stall selling carved wooden statues, thinking of how he used to bring souvenirs home for Alyssa. She'd always fuss about decorating the living room. Now, that living room was a scene of betrayal. He exhaled, set the statue down, and walked away. This was his life now, a man forging ahead, carrying a carefully managed anger that propelled him forward. Even if it left some emptiness behind, so be it. Back at the apartment, he found a note from Brianna slid under his door. Had to leave for an emergency trip to Hong Kong. Here's the contact info for my cousin, the forensic accountant. Good luck. B.F. Attached was a phone number. Tucked under that was a short line in her neat handwriting. Remember, you're not alone. Vindication is near. He gave a soft snort at the personal gesture. Strange how, in the midst of marital collapse, he'd gained a new ally. People responded unpredictably to tragedy and betrayal. Some shrank away, others rallied behind him. That dynamic was overshadowing his entire existence now. The calm before final escalation. After scanning more documents for the case bank statements, text transcripts, he tried to sleep, but restless images filled his mind. The final hearing was approaching, multiple lawsuits entangled. The possibility that Alyssa might face a criminal indictment for forgery. He pictured stepping off a plane back in the States, walking into a courtroom where she'd stand, eyes wild with desperation. He pictured delivering the final blow that severed their marriage irrevocably, leaving her financially wrecked and possibly behind bars. He wouldn't flinch. This was the bed she made. Let her lie in it. With a slow inhale, he turned off the bedside lamp. A bitter satisfaction pulsed in him, tempered by that faint ache. Yet he'd push forward, determined never to be that weak, trusting man again. Chapter 6. A week later, Joel shuffled into a dull, gray federal courtroom for his initial bankruptcy hearing. He wore an ill-fitting blazer, sweat shining on his brow. Alyssa, equally sullen, trailed behind but didn't dare hold his hand. Tensions between them were high. She was there partly because any mention of joint debts or living arrangements could affect her case. The bankruptcy trustee reviewed Joel's petition with a frown. "You're claiming nearly $50,000 in unsecured debt, plus a potential personal liability from an alienation of affection lawsuit." Joel swallowed. "Yes, sir. The lawsuit's unfair. I can't pay that if they succeed." "Be aware," the trustee interjected, "if the court finds that your alleged conduct was intentional or malicious, that debt might not be dischargeable. Also, we have a note here about gambling activity." Joel's face twitched. "It was casual games, nothing major." Alyssa stood off to the side, arms crossed, glaring. She feared the trustee might pry into her finances, too. Indeed, the trustee asked, "Are you living with someone who's helping you pay living expenses? Ms. Devereaux, is that you?" She shifted uneasily. "We're sharing a friend's apartment, but we can barely cover rent." It was a humiliating scene. The trustee scheduled further hearings, warning Joel that any misrepresentation or hidden assets would bring severe consequences. By the time they stumbled out into the hallway, Joel was furious, whispering harshly, "Thanks a lot for dragging me into your mess with your ex." Alyssa spat back. "My mess? You were the one who insisted we'd be fine after you got fired. We had no backup plan, and it's you Dennis is suing. Don't pin it all on me." They parted ways in the parking lot, each resentful and exhausted. Though half a world away, Dennis received a prompt update from Rebecca. Joel's hearing was a disaster. They're not impressed by his attempts to dodge. It'll be an uphill climb for him to get relief from any damages we're awarded. Dennis read the message, a faint smile of triumph on his lips. He stepped away from his desk to a private hallway, phone in hand. "Perfect. Keep me posted." A swirl of satisfaction coursed through him. The net was tightening around Joel. If Joel thought bankruptcy was a get-out-of-jail-free card, he was mistaken. Meanwhile, Alyssa's legal woes with the house, the forgery. The pending final divorce hearing, everything spelled doom for her. Dennis liked to picture them both cowering under the weight. Later, Dennis hopped on a call with Brianna's cousin, the forensic accountant named Julian Frost. Over a secure video platform, Julian introduced himself, a middle-aged man with a kind face and sharp gaze. "Brianna told me your situation. I've taken a preliminary look at some documents she forwarded from your lawyer." "Fascinating stuff," Julian said, flipping through notes. "Your wife's financial patterns show multiple cash infusions that correspond to Joel's credit card payoffs. We can link that to dates of known gambling activity. She's essentially been fueling Joel's debts from your marital resources. That's more evidence of spousal misconduct." Dennis's heart pounded. "We can use that in court, correct?" "Absolutely." Under certain jurisdictions, reckless spending to benefit an affair partner can be grounds for dissipation of marital assets. The judge might grant you a larger share of any remaining property because she improperly spent money that should have been part of the marital estate. Julian paused. Additionally, if the forgery on the refinance is proven, it all ties into a pattern of unethical financial behavior. The entire case is stacked heavily in your favor. Dennis exhaled, relief and ferocious excitement swirling. Thank you, Mr. Frost. This is invaluable. My pleasure. I'll coordinate with Ms. Morgan to finalize the evidence for the upcoming trial. Best of luck, Mr. Langley. They ended the call. Dennis leaned back, adrenaline surging. The deeper they dug, the more filth they uncovered. Alyssa had truly shot herself in the foot, both feet, in fact. He thought of her outraged glare, her mocking sneers. I bet you're not sneering now, Alyssa. Over in the States, Alyssa trudged into her attorney Monica's office for an emergency consult. She clutched a thick folder of disorganized papers, some bank statements, half-paid credit card bills, scattered receipts. Her eyes were bloodshot. She barely slept these days. Anxiety twisted her stomach. Monica motioned for her to sit. We need to talk strategy. Your soon-to-be ex-husband has overwhelming evidence of adultery, financial misconduct, plus this mortgage forgery suspicion. The DA's office has started poking around. We can't ignore the possibility of criminal charges. Alyssa's face paled. Criminal? You're my lawyer, stop them. There must be a loophole. I can't go to prison. Monica sighed. I'm not a miracle worker. If the notary testifies that you forged your husband's signature, you're in deep trouble. We might consider a plea deal eventually if the DA files charges. For the divorce trial, we can try to salvage some spousal support claim. But it's unlikely with the evidence of your affair and this overshadowing fraud. He's also introduced an alienation suit, though that's more about Joel's liability. Still, it influences the judge's perception. Alyssa slumped. So I lose everything? I won't even get money from the house? It's possible you get nothing, or next to nothing, Monica said bluntly. He's freezing all assets, and the judge is leaning in his favor. If you want any hope of a lesser blow, you might approach him about a settlement. Alyssa's mind whirled. Swallow her pride and beg Dennis for leniency? The thought made her sick. Yet what alternative remained? She recalled the times she'd sneered at him for being weak. The irony stung. She gave Monica a trembling nod. Find out if he'll even talk settlement. Monica pursed her lips. I'll reach out to his lawyer, but don't hold your breath for a sweet deal. From everything I see, Dennis Langley is out for blood. Alyssa clenched her fists, tears burning behind her eyes. How did it come to this? Later that day, Monica drafted a settlement proposal, emailing it to Rebecca. It basically said, Alyssa will concede to a no-fault divorce if Dennis drops any criminal referrals and provides a modest spousal maintenance for 2 years. It also demanded the house be sold, but profits split 50-50. When Rebecca read it, she burst into near laughter. She forwarded the proposal to Dennis with a note. They must be insane. They're offering you peanuts while asking for spousal support and a chunk of the house sale. You want to respond? Dennis's reaction was immediate. He wrote back, absolutely not. No spousal support. I want majority, at least 80% of house proceeds, or 100% if possible, plus no dropping of any criminal angle. She's out of her mind. Rebecca's official response to Monica was curt. Our client declines. The suits and potential criminal charges stand. Alyssa's best course is to prepare for trial or provide a vastly improved offer. The next day, Monica informed Alyssa of Dennis's refusal. Alyssa's face twisted with rage and despair. He wants it all, she said in a hollow voice. He's going to ruin me." Joel, eavesdropping from the corner, snorted. "Guess you shouldn't have married a bastard, or cheated on him." She shot him a venomous glare, but the truth was plain. She was trapped, and so was he. Back in Jakarta, Dennis read the failed settlement request and felt a twinge. Alyssa was truly desperate if she was reaching out for a deal. Did that soften him? Hardly. But it did spark an old memory. Their wedding day. She had worn a simple but elegant white gown, tears of joy in her eyes, promising forever. Now she was locked in a bitter war to salvage scraps of a life she'd destroyed. He shook off the nostalgia. She'd made her bed with Joel. She told him he was immature, controlling, that he wasn't man enough. Now, ironically, she was the one cowering. He typed a message to Rebecca. "No mercy. Let's push the criminal route if we can." She had her chance. He sent it, swallowing the last shred of pity. Despite the tension, Dennis kept a faint line of communication with Riley via email. She expressed regret about her public smears, acknowledging she'd taken down the hostile social media posts. She also updated him that she found a part-time job near campus. "I'm trying to be self-reliant, Dad, but tuition's still a mountain." Dennis was cautious, but softened slightly. He arranged, through Rebecca, to pay a portion of Riley's upcoming semester fees directly to the university, bypassing Alyssa entirely. He told Riley, "I'll do this once, to see if you keep your word. Don't side with your mother's attempts to sabotage me. If you stay neutral or support me, we can move forward." Riley responded with relief and gratitude, promising she wouldn't let him down again. That small father-daughter connection was the only bright spot in the gloom for Dennis. Dennis's day job continued thriving. He'd stabilized Vernon Tech's expansion in Indonesia, forging deals that saved the company millions. The CEO shot him a congratulatory email stating that once he returned to the States, a new position, Director of Global Projects, might be waiting. The idea of a higher salary, stock options, and a bigger role appealed to him. He saw a future where he soared at the company, unburdened by a toxic marriage. One late evening, he found himself with a quiet moment in the office. Staring at spreadsheets, he realized he hadn't truly paused to reflect on his personal future beyond vengeance. Did he see himself dating again? Remarrying? The concept felt distant, almost alien. He still carried the raw betrayal. But maybe once the dust settled, he could see a path to normalcy. Or maybe he'd remain single, focusing on an unencumbered life. Either way, Alyssa would be in the rearview mirror. Another week passed swiftly, the final trial date looming. The tension was palpable. Rebecca told him, "We have enough evidence to bury Alyssa. The mortgage forgery alone might lead to a felony indictment soon after the civil trial. She's flailing, no doubt about it. Possibly, she'll try more last-minute settlement pleas." "I'll ignore them," Dennis said, unwavering. "She didn't show mercy, humiliating me. I'm returning the favor." Rebecca paused. "Understood. Just be prepared for a spectacle in court. She's clearly unraveling. Sometimes people do desperate things." Dennis's brow furrowed. "I'll keep that in mind." Outside the legal sphere, Indonesian staff congratulated him daily on project milestones. They had no clue about the personal war he was waging from afar. He wore a composed mask, but inside, adrenaline spiked at the thought of stepping back onto American soil soon to finalize Alyssa's downfall. With the trial only 10 days away, the Vernon Tech board authorized Dennis to return stateside for a month if needed. They recognized he'd done exemplary work and deserved time to handle personal affairs. He arranged his flight itinerary, coordinating with Rebecca. She insisted he attend the final trial in person if he wanted maximum impact. Kendrick was thrilled by the news, calling him with an excited tone. "This is it, buddy. Come home and watch them crash and burn in real time. You'll have front row seats in court." Dennis felt a fierce anticipation. "Damn right. Thanks for all your help. Keep the final evidence organized." "I will. We'll see you soon." When Dennis hung up, he exhaled, heart pounding. The next time he landed in the U.S., he wouldn't be the same naive husband. He was returning as a man with the power to crush the woman who betrayed him. Chapter 7. Dennis stepped off the plane at LAX, feeling a jolt of surreal energy. It had been months since he'd set foot in the States. His carry-on felt lighter than when he left, though it contained more crucial documents. Inside his mind, he was heavier burdened with the knowledge of all that had transpired. Kendrick awaited him beyond security, flashing a grin. "Look at you, tan, fit, and unstoppable." They shook hands firmly, then embraced. "Ready to finalize this?" Dennis gave a tight nod. "More than ready. Let's bury them." They grabbed coffee at an airport cafe, huddling to discuss final details. Kendrick whispered about the stacked evidence. Every video snippet, every bank record, the mortgage forgery, the fiancé of the shady notary who might testify Alyssa paid for a false signature. "Rebecca has a star lineup. Alyssa's going to lose her mind when she sees how prepared we are." Dennis sipped his coffee, adrenaline thrumming. Perfect. 2 hours later, Dennis entered Rebecca Morgan's sleek downtown office. She emerged from behind her desk with a wide smile, arms outstretched. "Welcome back, soldier." He shook her hand, then let her guide him into a small conference room. Stacks of files lined the table. She gave a quick overview. "Tomorrow is the final divorce trial. A lot is on the docket. Property division, possible spousal support, plus the forgery angle. The DA isn't pressing charges until they see the outcome of the civil case. But they're monitoring. If we highlight enough evidence, they'll likely file soon." "Good," Dennis said. "I want them to see her for the criminal she is." Rebecca nodded. "We also anticipate Joel will be there, given the alienation suit is closely tied. His bankruptcy hearing is separate, but if we get a damage award, we can challenge his discharge." Dennis's gaze hardened. "Let's do it." She spent the next hour rehearsing his testimony and briefing him on potential cross-examination. He had no illusions it would be pleasant, but he felt unshakable. Before he left, Rebecca offered a gentle warning. Alyssa might try to pull emotional stunts in court, or Joel might attempt some half-baked scheme. "Keep calm. Let me handle the fireworks. We just lay out the evidence." Dennis thanked her, determined not to let any last-minute theatrics throw him off. Steeling himself at Kendrick's place. That night, Dennis stayed at Kendrick's suburban home. The guest room was comfortable, far from the memories of the house he once shared with Alyssa. Over a late beer, Kendrick asked, "Nervous about facing them tomorrow?" Dennis shrugged. "A bit. But mostly, I'm itching to end it. No more phone calls from across the ocean. I want to look them in the eye as the judge nails the coffin shut." "Damn straight," Kendrick said, raising his beer bottle in a small toast. "They deserve every second of it." They clinked bottles. Dennis let out a half-laugh. "I just never pictured my life leading here, you know? In college, I was that idealistic guy who believed in forever love. Now I'm this." Kendrick patted his shoulder. "You're stronger. You didn't do this. She did. And I, for one, am glad to see you not letting anyone walk over you again." Those words buoyed Dennis's spirit. He drained his beer, eyes set on tomorrow. "In the morning, we finish this." A crisp morning sunlight gleamed on the courthouse's marble steps as Dennis arrived with Rebecca by his side. Reporters weren't exactly swarming, but a small local press presence was there. Apparently, the mortgage fraud rumor had piqued interest. He paid them no mind, forging ahead. Inside, the tension was immediate. Alyssa stood with her lawyer, Monica, near the corridor, hair disheveled, eyes hollow. She spotted Dennis, and her gaze flickered with hatred and desperation. Joel lingered a step behind her, face pale, fiddling with his phone. Their body language screamed defeat. Rebecca gave him a calm nod. "Don't even acknowledge them." They entered the courtroom, took seats at the petitioner's table. Alyssa and her counsel sat opposite. Joel found a spot behind Alyssa, shoulders hunched. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, emerged, and the bailiff called the session to order. Proceedings opened with final statements about the divorce. Rebecca laid out the evidence of adultery, referencing video captures, sanitized for court, showing how Alyssa had openly carried on a sexual relationship with Joel in the marital home. She introduced documents of Alyssa's suspicious financial transfers to Joel and her forging of Dennis's signature on the refinance. The judge's brow furrowed at each new piece. Then it was Dennis's turn on the stand. He spoke calmly, recounting how he discovered the affair, how Alyssa humiliated him at that party, how he found the bed soiled, how she refused to show remorse and instead taunted him. He described being forced to move out, all while Alyssa and Joel flaunted their relationship. He concluded with the mortgage forgery. "She betrayed not just me emotionally, but also financially and criminally." Rebecca asked him to confirm the timeline, which he did confidently. Monica's cross-examination tried to paint him as absent or controlling, but he remained unshaken, pointing out Alyssa's own texts bragging about the affair. The judge gave him a respectful nod as he left the stand. Then Alyssa took the stand. Her attorney guided her through a teary narrative. She insisted she felt trapped in an unhappy marriage, claiming Dennis neglected her needs. She alleged he was emotionally distant, though provided no concrete examples. The judge looked skeptical. When Rebecca cross-examined, she zeroed in on the finances. "Mrs. Devereaux, is this your signature on these refinance documents?" "Yes," Alyssa muttered, eyes darting. "And whose signature is that next to yours? The one labeled Dennis Langley?" Alyssa's face paled. I guess it's his, maybe." "You guess?" "We have a notary on record stating Mr. Langley never appeared, that you came alone. Did you forge it?" I needed extra money. He wouldn't have agreed. So yes, I forged it," she finally gasped, tears brimming. A ripple went through the courtroom. The judge's mouth set in a grim line. Rebecca pressed further, highlighting the timeline. Alyssa tried to justify it by claiming Dennis controlled the money. But it sounded hollow. The judge's gaze grew harsher with each mention of the forgery. Lastly, they discussed the affair. Alyssa's attempts to minimize it fell flat when confronted with explicit text transcripts. She practically collapsed on the stand, sobbing, "He left me no choice. He was never around." The judge remained impassive. Next, Joel was called, mainly regarding the alienation of affection claim. He stammered, claiming the relationship just happened, that he didn't intend to break up a marriage. Rebecca politely asked if he was aware Alyssa was married. He mumbled yes. She produced texts showing him mocking Dennis. The judge's disapproval was evident. Joel tried to claim financial hardship, referencing his bankruptcy, but the judge was unimpressed. She reminded him that malicious acts might not be dischargeable. He left the stand looking close to fainting. After a brief recess, everyone reconvened. The judge delivered her verdict on the divorce. The marriage was irretrievably broken due to Alyssa's adultery. Dennis was granted a majority share of the marital assets, 80% of the house proceeds once sold, reflecting Alyssa's dissipation of funds and forgery. No spousal support was awarded to Alyssa, given her misconduct. Alyssa was ordered to reimburse Dennis's legal fees, partially, and to pay restitution for the forged refinance if the DA confirmed it was fraudulent. Then, addressing Joel's alienation suit, the judge recognized willful, malicious interference. She awarded Dennis a significant monetary judgment against Joel, $50,000 in damages. That alone dwarfed Joel's meager resources, ensuring a prolonged financial burden. Alyssa's face was a picture of devastation. Joel looked equally shell-shocked. Monica laid a trembling hand on Alyssa's shoulder, but Alyssa jerked away in tears. The judge ended with a stern note. "Mrs. Devereaux, the evidence of forgery is serious. I expect the district attorney to review this thoroughly. Court is adjourned. Gavel strike, done." As they exited, Alyssa cornered Dennis near the hallway. Her eyes wild, she hissed, "You're destroying me, you know that. Over one mistake?" He narrowed his gaze. "One mistake? You openly cheated, forged my name, ridiculed me. Don't you dare downplay it." She let out a choked sob. "We were married for 13 years. How can you be so cold?" "Because you taught me how." He brushed past her, not wanting further drama. Joel slunk by, saying nothing, practically trembling. Alyssa shot him a scathing look, as if it was his fault too. They parted ways, each consumed by misery. Rebecca, Kendrick, and Dennis headed to a nearby cafe for a subdued celebration. "We did it," Rebecca said, raising a latte cup. "You're free, officially divorced, with the lion's share of everything. She's got a huge legal liability and possible criminal charges." Dennis nodded, relief washing over him, but also an odd emptiness. It's over. He'd spent so many months driven by the need to get here. Now what? Kendrick clapped him on the back. "Be proud, man. You stood up for yourself." "I am," Dennis said quietly. He let that sense of closure settle around him. The war was effectively won. Still, a lingering note of sadness hovered. 13 years wiped out by betrayal. But he'd done what was necessary. The final blow delivered. No mercy given. So be it. Chapter 8. Within a mere week of the trial, local news outlets reported that the district attorney had formally indicted Alyssa on one count of felony forgery regarding the mortgage. The notary's testimony and the judge's statements provided enough cause for a warrant. Alyssa was forced to turn herself in, posting bail with borrowed money from some distant cousin. She'd face a criminal court date soon. When Dennis got the news from Rebecca, he felt a surge of final vindication. So Alyssa might actually taste the inside of a cell. Harsh, perhaps, but she'd committed a crime. She'd always believed herself above consequences. Now, reality had caught up. Court orders mandated the marital home be sold. The place had sat empty for weeks after Alyssa abandoned it. Dennis and Rebecca arranged to have it listed. But one afternoon, Dennis decided to stop by for a final inspection. He found Alyssa pacing in the driveway, wearing a defeated expression. She spotted his car, marched over. "The realtor said the listing price is lower than expected. I won't get anything." He gave a wry shrug. "You lost your share, remember? The judge gave me 80%. So even if it sells lower, the portion you get is negligible. Not my problem." She stared at him, anguish twisting her features. "Dennis, can't you just let me have a bit more, for old times' sake?" He laughed bitterly. "Old times' sake? You shattered that memory. I owe you nothing." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm going to prison. Possibly you got your revenge. Why are you so heartless now?" He clenched his fists at his sides, voice low. "You want to know why? Picture me stumbling onto our bed, reeking of Joel's cologne. Picture you telling me to accept your date with him. Picture the money you stole from me to fund his crap. That's why." She collapsed into sobs, sinking to the curb. He watched dispassionately. Then softly he said, "It's done, Alyssa. no more. Live with the consequences. He turned, re-entered his car, and drove away without a backward glance. On Joel's end, the $50,000 judgment weighed heavily. He tried to incorporate it into his Chapter 13 plan, but Dennis's legal team objected, citing malicious conduct. A separate hearing was scheduled, and the bankruptcy court seemed inclined to rule for Dennis. If so, Joel couldn't rid himself of that debt easily. Joel sank deeper into despair. He'd parted ways with Alyssa after a vicious argument, blaming her for leading him on. She retorted that he was the reason Dennis found out in the first place. Their fling had devolved into open hatred. Joel ended up couch surfing yet again, job applications unanswered. From a safe vantage, Dennis saw these developments through Rebecca's updates. Each new piece of Joel's misery felt like another trophy on his mental shelf. Actions have consequences, he thought, recalling the day he walked out of his own house, ringless, humiliated. Joel reaped what he sowed. While chaos enveloped Alyssa and Joel, Dennis took a cautious step to meet Riley in person. She'd come home for a weekend, and they arranged to chat at a small coffee shop near her campus. When Dennis walked in, he spotted Riley at a corner table, fiddling nervously with her phone. She looked up, eyes wide with a mixture of guilt and relief. "Dad," she whispered, rising. He accepted a brief hug, feeling how she'd grown from a teenager into a more adult figure. They both sat. "I read your texts and emails," he began. "You seem to be trying. I appreciate that." Riley's voice trembled. I know I messed up. I swallowed Mom's narrative that you were the problem, but it's clear I was wrong. She's shown a side I didn't recognize." He nodded. "She had me fooled once, too." They talked for an hour about school, her part-time job, the state of Alyssa's meltdown. Riley asked if there was any chance the forgeries had been exaggerated. He shook his head. "No." She admitted it in court. "She's indicted." Tears glimmered in Riley's eyes. "This is insane. Will she go to prison?" "Possibly," Dennis replied, not unkindly. "That was her choice, forging my signature." Riley slumped. "I don't even know how to process this. It's like my family's destroyed." He gently put a hand on her shoulder. "We can't change what she did. We can only move forward. I'm willing to help you keep going with your education, as long as you don't sabotage me or side with her manipulations." "Dad, I promise," she said earnestly. "I'm done blaming you. I just want to fix our relationship." A fragile but hopeful understanding passed between them. He offered a small smile. "Let's keep in touch, kiddo. This time, honestly." They parted with a careful hug. Outside, Dennis felt a lighter burden. Maybe he'd lost Alyssa, but his daughter wasn't irredeemable. That was something. That evening, curiosity led Dennis to drive by the old neighborhood. The house was on the market, sign posted out front, a lockbox on the door. He parked across the street, gazing at the place that once meant a stable future. The windows were dark, the lawn slightly overgrown. It looked haunted, an echo of a life that died. He remembered the day he moved in with Alyssa, how excited they'd been to start a family. Now he felt no nostalgia, only relief that he'd cut ties. The final sale would close in a few weeks, netting him a tidy sum, freed from the old illusions. He whispered to himself, "I'm done." Then he drove away, determined never to dwell in that shadow again. Alyssa's forging case advanced quickly. Within a month, she was arraigned. Pleading not guilty, she still tried to shift blame, but the evidence was strong. The DA offered a plea deal: serve a reduced jail term of a few months plus probation, or risk a longer sentence if convicted. She agonized, eventually accepting the deal. Right before sentencing, she called Dennis, voice shaking. "I'm pleading guilty to forgery. They might lock me up for a few months. Are you happy now?" He paused, then quietly responded, "This was never about my happiness, Alyssa. It's about consequences." She started to cry. "You wanted me destroyed. Well, you got it." "I wanted justice," he corrected. "Your actions destroyed you. Don't put that on me." Then he hung up. He felt a slight tremor inside. Yes, he'd wanted revenge. But that final phone call still left him cold. He reminded himself it was her choice. Actions have consequences. The day Alyssa reported to serve her brief sentence, she wore the same hollow expression as in the courthouse. She had no crowd of supporters, no family hugging her goodbye. Even Joel was absent, having severed ties. She'd lost her job, lost the house, lost her community respect, and was about to lose her freedom, if only for a short while. Reporters didn't swarm, but a local tabloid got a photo of her entering the county detention center. The headline read, "Manager convicted for forging husband's signature linked to scandalous affair." The shame was complete. Inside the jail, she cried alone in her bunk, cursing the chain of events that led her here. Outside, the world moved on. People had fresh scandals to discuss. Alyssa Devereaux became just another cautionary tale. In parallel, the bankruptcy court ruled that the $50,000 judgment from Dennis's alienation suit was non-dischargeable due to malicious intent. Joel was forced into a repayment plan that would garnish portions of his wages for years if he found steady work. He was effectively bankrupt, credit shot, prospects grim. A co-worker from his old firm told a friend that Joel was last seen applying for a part-time retail job, all swagger gone. He had nowhere left to run. Another victory for Dennis's scorched earth plan. With Alyssa in jail and Joel drowning in debt, Dennis felt the war was over. He spent another week wrapping personal matters, finalizing the sale of the house, and completing leftover legal tasks with Rebecca. She gave him a congratulatory handshake. "You got everything you wanted. House sale closes next week. That'll net you a healthy chunk. Joel's forced to pay you, and your ex-wife is behind bars for at least a few months with a felony record." Dennis nodded, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "Thank you, Rebecca. Couldn't have done this without you and Kendrick. I appreciate it." She patted his arm. "You've been through hell. Go enjoy life now." He walked out of her office feeling a mix of triumph and weariness. It was time to move forward. No more scouring for evidence, no more depositions, no more sleepless nights imagining Alyssa's betrayal. On his last evening in town, he visited Riley's campus again, taking her to dinner in a modest cafe. They laughed awkwardly, talking about classes and career goals. He told her about his likely promotion at Vernon Tech. She said she planned to switch her major to something more aligned with finance or law, ironically inspired by the fiasco. "I realized how crucial it is to understand how these systems work," she explained. They parted with a genuine hug, promising to stay in touch. The next morning, Dennis boarded a flight back to Jakarta, ironically, though he might not stay there long if the promotion took him elsewhere. Either way, he left with a weight lifted. He'd come, he'd conquered, he'd seen Alyssa face the full brunt of his revenge. Now, as the plane soared into the sky, he felt a strange calm. The storms of betrayal were behind him. Chapter 9. Dennis Langley had planned to fly back to Jakarta a few days after finalizing his divorce proceedings and ensuring Alyssa's indictment. The company had said he could spend a month stateside, but given his thoroughness, he'd wrapped everything in less time. Yet as he stood in the terminal at LAX, ticket in hand, something tugged at him. He realized he didn't feel the same urgency to jump back into the Indonesian project. He'd effectively completed it. He'd shaped up the operation, earned accolades from the CEO, and rumor was there'd be a newly created position director of global projects waiting for him soon. He could just as easily handle some bridging tasks from the States until that role was official. Did he want to keep living out of a suitcase halfway across the world? He checked in with HR, who confirmed the board was discussing accelerating his promotion. "You might not need to return to Jakarta at all," they said. "We'll keep you posted." So Dennis delayed his departure, exchanging the ticket for an open date. For the first time in months, his schedule was flexible. No pressing storms. The war at home was for now quiet, with Alyssa behind bars. Yet a strange restlessness filled him. He'd spent so long driven by vengeance and work. Now, with both battles seemingly won, who was he? Staying once more in Kendrick's guest room, Dennis found himself up late, restless. Kendrick emerged with 2 beers, offering one. "You're still in my house," he teased, "but you don't look relaxed." Dennis sipped, gaze distant. "I guess I'm floating. The big fight's over. Alyssa's in jail, Joel's bankrupt, Riley and I are on cautious good terms. My job is secure. Shouldn't I be feeling relief?" "You probably do. But you've also spent a year fueled by anger," Kendrick said. "It's like soldiers returning from war. Once it's done, they feel unmoored." Dennis exhaled. "So what do I do now? Just pretend everything's normal?" Kendrick clinked bottles with him. "I say, find a new focus. You have a huge chunk of money from the house. Your career's thriving. Maybe buy a new place, build a life. Travel for fun, not for business. Meet people. Date. You're only in your early 40s, man." The suggestion of dating made Dennis bristle slightly. "Not sure I'm ready to trust again?" Kendrick shrugged. "You can start small. Not every woman is Alyssa. Don't let one betrayal define your entire future." Dennis mulled that over, swirling the beer. "Perhaps. I guess it's time to start living, not just fighting." Within a week, the marital house sale closed. As ordered by the court, 80% of the net proceeds went to Dennis, which amounted to a tidy sum, while a paltry remainder was set aside for Alyssa, though in practice, most of that was swallowed by her mounting legal bills. The day the wire transfer hit Dennis's bank account, he blinked at the number, feeling both satisfaction and a hollow pang. So many memories tied to that house, but it's done. Rebecca called to congratulate him. "Now you can invest or do whatever you want with that capital. You've severed all direct financial ties to Alyssa, except for anything pending with her restitution. She might owe you more if the DA rules you should be compensated for the forgery. But that's separate." "Thank you for everything," Dennis said. "I truly owe you, Rebecca." She laughed. "You've already paid me plenty, plus the personal satisfaction of nailing 2 cheaters. Take care, Dennis. If you need more legal help, you know where to find me." He hung up, a smile tugging his lips. Life, at last, looked wide open. No anchor. Later that day, an email popped up from Brianna Frost, the Vernon Tech executive who'd supported him from Jakarta. "Dennis, heard you might be staying stateside. I'm traveling to San Francisco next week for a conference. Let's meet if you're around. We could discuss your potential new role. Also, I'd love to take you out for dinner. Call it a thank you for all the synergy abroad. Let me know." Dennis reread the note, feeling a stir of curiosity. Brianna had always been blunt, intelligent, and apparently supportive of his personal vendetta. Now, was she just referencing business or something else? He typed back, "I'm free next week. San Francisco's a short flight from here. Let's talk details." He hesitated before sending a second message. "Dinner sounds nice, thanks." A faint thrill ran through him. Am I stepping into something new? He wasn't sure, but the thought of seeing Brianna outside a purely professional setting intrigued him. Meanwhile, his daughter Riley continued forging her own path. They'd swapped a few more emails. She updated him that her new job in a campus office was going well, and she'd begun therapy to process the family drama. "Part of me still can't believe Mom's in jail," she wrote. "But after seeing the evidence, I guess it's her fault. I do feel sorry, though." Dennis's heart twisted, reading that. He felt sorry, in a distant sense, too. No one wants the mother of their child behind bars. But pity didn't erase the necessity of consequences. He responded kindly, encouraging Riley to stay focused on her studies, reassuring her that her tuition was covered for the next semester. "I'm proud you're taking responsibility for your life," he wrote. "I'm always here if you stay honest." They weren't fully healed, but it was something. One morning, Dennis got a text from a random number. "Hey, it's Joel. PL's talk?" He snorted in disbelief. The nerve. He showed the phone to Kendrick, who shrugged. "Up to you if you want to respond." Curious, Dennis texted back, "What do you want?" Joel's reply came fast. "I'm drowning. I can't repay that $50K. My life's ruined. Pels, consider a settlement or reduce the judgment." Dennis rolled his eyes. "You made your bed, Joel. I won't reduce anything." Joel: "Come on, man. Alyssa used me. We both know that. She's the real culprit. I was just a pawn. Don't punish me forever." Dennis stared at the screen, a swirl of contempt rising. He's blaming Alyssa now. Typical coward. He typed, "Should have thought of that before you slept in my bed with my wife. That debt stands. Don't contact me again." He blocked the number. Enough said. Soon after, Dennis received a letter in the mail from the county detention center. The sender's name? Alyssa Devereaux. He debated tossing it unread, but curiosity won. The letter was short, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Dennis, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but this place is hell. I'm so alone. I can't believe how quickly my life unraveled. Yes, I did awful things. I see that now. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to talk face to face. I promise I won't beg or anything. There are things I want to say about our past. Alyssa." A pang flickered in Dennis's chest. He'd fantasized about this scenario. Alyssa, broken, in a cell, begging. Yet her letter seemed oddly resigned. Should he bother visiting? He asked Kendrick, who shrugged. Might be closure, or might be a trap to manipulate you. Dennis considered. Then he resolved, one final talk. She was in jail, no real power to harm him. Perhaps it'd give him a sense of final closure. He arranged an appointment through the detention center, mentally bracing himself. A few days later, he passed through grim security corridors, eventually guided to a visitation booth partitioned by plexiglass. Alyssa sat on the other side, in a baggy orange jumpsuit. Her hair was dull, skin pale, eyes haunted. She lifted the receiver and had picked up his side. For a moment, they just stared at each other. She was the first to speak. "You came?" He nodded curtly. "You asked." She exhaled. "I wanted to say, I know I can't undo the past, but I wanted you to hear me out. I never planned on it ending like this. I was bored, yes, feeling neglected. Joel seemed exciting. I was stupid. I get that. Her voice cracked. "I never thought you'd actually push it to the brink of prison." Dennis's voice was cold. "I didn't push. You forged my signature, Alyssa. That's not on me." She swallowed. "I know. I was desperate for more money at the time. But the affair, I guess I wanted a new thrill. I never truly loved him. It was all a fantasy. She paused, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I do regret it." He studied her. Once that face had been his whole world. Now she was a stranger. "You regret getting caught," he said quietly. "Or do you regret hurting me?" She shut her eyes. "Both. Honestly. I see it now. You didn't deserve that. I was hateful. I guess I wanted to prove something, that I could do what I wanted, and you'd still chase after me. But you fought back. He nodded, unmoved by her tears. And look where we are. She sniffed, wiping her cheek. I know you won't ever forgive me. I'm not asking you to. But if you can find a shred of memory that was good between us, please remember I wasn't always a monster. I used to love you. I just lost my way. For a brief second, his heart twinged. He recalled the honeymoon days, the laughter, the times they joked about future travels. I do remember, he said, voice barely above a whisper, but it doesn't matter now. She nodded, despair in her eyes. No, it doesn't. I'll be out in a few months, but I have no idea what's left for me. No job, no money, no home. He kept his tone firm. You'll have to figure that out. We're done, Alyssa. A moment of silence passed. Then she choked out, Do you hate me? He inhaled. I don't know. I used to. Maybe I still do. Or maybe I'm just indifferent. This was your choice. Live with it. Her tears flowed freely. I'm sorry, she whispered. He didn't respond. He hung up the receiver gently, stood, and walked away. She might be genuinely sorry now, but it was far too late. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving her behind the glass, sobbing. Dennis emerged into the hallway, feeling curiously calm, as though a final knot had been cut. Leaving the detention center, Dennis breathed the outside air deeply, the sun on his face. It's truly over, he thought. No illusions, no lingering threads. Alyssa was undone by her own actions, and he delivered the finishing blow. Now he could focus on the future with a clean slate. He decided on the spot. He'd head to San Francisco for that conference. He'd talk with Brianna about the new role. He'd maybe even take a vacation after. He had the finances, the freedom, and zero reason to dwell in misery. A few days later, he hopped a short flight to San Francisco, greeted by the city's foggy skyline. A Vernon Tech driver took him to a modern downtown hotel. He checked in, feeling an odd flutter in his chest, excitement he hadn't felt in a long time. He shot Brianna a text. Just arrived. Ready for dinner any time. Her reply was swift. Perfect. Let's meet in the lounge at 7 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you again. Chapter 10. At 7 p.m., sharp, Dennis stepped into the elegant hotel lounge. Dim lighting, soft jazz playing. He spotted Brianna at a corner table wearing a sleek black dress, her dark hair pulled into a sophisticated twist. She caught sight of him, rose, and offered a warm smile. Dennis, so good to see you in person again under less stressful circumstances. He returned her smile. Likewise. Thanks for the invitation. They settled at the table. The waiter approached, and they ordered drinks, Brianna a martini, Dennis a whiskey neat. Her gaze swept over him. You look different from the exhausted man I met in Jakarta. He chuckled wryly. I guess a successful revenge spree can lift a man's spirits? Brianna quirked an eyebrow. So, it's finished? Your ex-wife is in jail, right? He nodded, swirling his whiskey. Yeah, short sentence, but yeah. And Joel is financially crippled. It's all done. She lifted her martini glass. Then here's to the end of that saga, and to your new beginning. They clinked glasses, a subtle current of chemistry flickering in the air. They shifted to a private dining area, the conversation mixing business and personal updates. Brianna elaborated on Vernon Tech's future expansions. The board wants a dedicated director of global projects, someone who can troubleshoot fiascos like the Jakarta meltdown, but also lead new ventures in Europe, South America, you name it. She gave him a knowing smile. They want you in that role. Dennis exhaled softly. I appreciate the faith they have in me. That would be quite an upgrade. 6-figure base, plus bonuses and stock options, Brianna noted. You'd have a corporate HQ in whichever city you want here in San Francisco or near the main branch in Chicago. You'd travel frequently, but not for indefinite stretches. You'd basically be top brass, overseeing squads of managers in the field. He recognized how huge this was. I'd be honored. Brianna leaned forward, eyes gleaming. I'll push for them to finalize it soon. You earned it. Plus, selfishly, I'd like to keep working with you. We make a good team. As they finished dessert, the conversation turned more personal. Brianna asked, So, now that you're free, really free, how do you feel? No regrets? Dennis considered. Only that it had to come to such a brutal ending. But no. She forced my hand. I'm relieved. Now I'm just figuring out how to live. Brianna reached across the table, resting her hand lightly on his. I get it. I went through a nasty betrayal once. Not as severe as yours, but it changes you. Makes you question everything, especially trust. He glanced at her hand on his, noticing the warmth. Yes, it does. She smiled softly. But there's life after betrayal. And sometimes, it can be surprisingly good. A tingle of possibility ran through Dennis. He squeezed her hand gently. You're right. They lingered, eyes locked, the air between them charged. For a moment, he wondered if it was too soon to consider a romantic step. But something in Brianna's confident gaze told him it was okay to explore. Why not? They left the restaurant, drifting onto a nearby promenade. The city lights twinkled, a cool breeze off the bay. Brianna looped her arm through his. Nice night. He nodded, soaking in the moment. Feels weird to be in a place like this without stress or deadlines looming. She laughed softly. That's how normal people live. She studied his face. You should try it. He chuckled. I might. Then, hesitant, he added, Brianna, I appreciate everything you did offering resources, supporting me from Jakarta. You didn't have to. She shook her head. I believed in you. And well, I dislike cheaters. My father cheated on my mother once. Broke her heart. So maybe I was extra motivated to help you bury your ex. He squeezed her arm. Still, thank you. He slowed, turning to face her. You want to continue this walk a bit more? She smiled. I'd love to. They walked on, conversation flowing. The tension of the past months felt distant. For the first time, Dennis allowed himself a small measure of hope that something good, maybe even a new relationship, could arise from the ashes of his old life. Near midnight, as Dennis settled back in his hotel room, his phone vibrated. Riley's name flashed. Concerned, he answered. Everything okay? Riley's voice was excited. Dad, sorry to call so late. But guess what? I got accepted into a study abroad program in London next semester. It's partly scholarship-based, but I'll need some extra funds. Do you think you could help? He let out a short laugh of relief. That's great news. Congratulations. A pang of old wariness reared up. Would she repeat the cycle of demanding? But her tone was genuinely elated, not entitled. I'll see what I can do. If your grades remain solid and you keep out of any drama, we'll work it out. She squealed. Thank you, Dad. I'm so grateful. I promise I won't let you down. He could almost see her bouncing with excitement. I'm proud of you. Keep me posted, okay? After hanging up, he smiled to himself. At least with Riley, there's hope. Another step toward a normal father-daughter relationship. Another sign his life was moving on from Alyssa's wreckage. Early next morning, Brianna summoned Dennis to a private meeting with 2 Vernon Tech board members who were also in the city for the conference. In a sleek conference room, they congratulated him on his extraordinary performance under pressure and confirmed the creation of the Director of Global Projects role. They extended a formal offer, a base salary significantly higher than his current bracket, stock options vesting over 3 years, a moderate travel schedule to different project sites, but with a permanent home base in Chicago or San Francisco. His choice. Start date. As soon as he was ready. Dennis accepted with gratitude. He could sense Brianna's satisfied grin across the table. The board members looked pleased, exchanging approving nods. "We're excited to see what you do with this." Leaving the meeting, adrenaline coursed through him. He texted Kendrick, "Guess who's the new Director of Global Projects?" Kendrick replied with celebratory emojis. His phone rang seconds later. Kendrick whooping, "Dude, you're unstoppable! Congrats!" Dennis laughed, feeling a rush of pride. Yes, unstoppable. That afternoon, Brianna and Dennis grabbed coffee at a nearby cafe. She teased him. "So, have you decided? West Coast or Midwest for your new office?" He sipped thoughtfully. "San Francisco has its charm, nice weather, vibrant scene. Chicago's the main corporate hub, though." She leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "If you want my personal opinion, being based in San Francisco is great for the global role. Travel routes are easy, and I live here." She arched a playful brow. Dennis felt his pulse quicken. "That's a compelling argument." She smirked, then shifted serious. "But do what's best for you. I don't want to overshadow your logic." He considered. "Logically, Chicago is the bigger HQ, but ironically, I feel more drawn to a fresh start. Chicago was always near my old home with Alyssa. Maybe I want an entirely new environment." Brianna's smile widened. "I'd love to see you settle out here. I can help you get acquainted with the city." He nodded slowly. "All right. I think that's what I'll do. Let's put down some roots in SF." Her eyes lit up. "Then let me be your guide. You won't regret it." Later, after the conference sessions ended for the day, Brianna invited Dennis for a short drive to a coastal overlook. The sun hung low, painting the Pacific waters in gold. They strolled along the sandy path, the roar of the ocean a soothing backdrop. She broke the silence. "You know, I never get tired of this view. It reminds me how small our problems are compared to the vast world." He nodded, inhaling the salty air. "I spent so long fixating on every detail of my divorce. Now it feels distant, almost inconsequential." She glanced at him. "Alyssa's still in jail, right?" "Yeah. She'll serve a few months. After that, probably probation. She's a felon, though. Her job prospects are shot." Brianna's expression was pensive. "Do you feel satisfied? Or empty?" He considered. "Both. The satisfaction that she faced justice. The emptiness from losing the woman I once thought I'd spend my life with." They halted near a rocky ledge. Brianna placed her hand on his shoulder. "Don't let that emptiness define you. You have a life to lead, maybe with new joys you haven't imagined yet." His gaze locked with hers. The tension crackled. Slowly, he leaned in, brushing a tentative kiss to her lips. She responded, warm and soft. When they broke apart, her cheeks were slightly flushed, a smile tugging her mouth. "I guess we're crossing from professional to personal," she murmured. He exhaled, heart pounding. "I'm okay with that, if you are." She looped her arms around his neck. "Yes, I am. Let's not rush, but let's see where this goes." That evening, Dennis phoned Riley, telling her he might relocate to San Francisco for his new role. She sounded both excited and a bit sad. "Oh, that's awesome, Dad. But it's far from where I'm in college." He reassured her. "We can still connect. I'll visit, and you can come out on breaks." And if you go to London soon, distance is moot anyway. She laughed. True. I'm proud of you, Dad. Director of Global Projects. That's huge. Mom always said you were the steady one at work, but I see you're more than that. Dennis felt a small sting at the mention of Alyssa. Thanks, sweetheart. I'm just trying to build a new life. I'm done letting the past define me. Riley's voice brightened. Go for it. You deserve happiness. As the night deepened, Dennis found himself in his hotel room, gazing at the city lights. He reflected on how drastically life had changed in a single year. He'd gone from a betrayed husband to a corporate star with vengeance thoroughly enacted. Alyssa and Joel had learned the cost of betrayal. His daughter was forging her own path, not blindly following her mother. He felt something akin to serenity stealing over him. He texted Kendrick. I'm picking SF. Move might happen soon. Thanks for everything. Kendrick replied promptly. Thrilled for you. I'll miss having you nearby, but you gotta seize this. Congrats, man. Dennis smiled, setting the phone aside. Tomorrow, he'd meet Brianna for breakfast, finalize a plan with the board, then maybe spend the weekend exploring. Perhaps this was the start of an entirely new journey, free from the shadows of Alyssa's betrayal. I can breathe again. Chapter 11. The Transition to San Francisco. Over the next few weeks, Dennis threw himself into the logistical whirlwind of relocating. He formalized the acceptance of his new position with Vernon Tech. HR bombarded him with paperwork. He arranged for his personal items, some in storage since the divorce, to be shipped across the country. He decided to rent a stylish condo near the bay while scouting for a permanent home. Brianna was instrumental in helping him find a suitable neighborhood. You'll want something near the water or with a good commute to the office, she advised, driving him around on weekends. They bantered about styles. He joked about wanting a minimalist space, no reminders of his old domestic life. She laughed, saying, Fresh start indeed. He couldn't deny how easy it felt around her, the synergy from their professional bond merging with a blossoming affection. Yet they both proceeded with caution, just dinner dates, shared outings, small touches. But the deeper connection steadily grew. One evening, during a video call with Riley, she noticed a fleeting cameo of Brianna in the background. Dad, who's that? Dennis, slightly flustered, explained. Her name's Brianna, a colleague. We've grown close. Riley's eyes lit up. Oh? You're dating? He shrugged, a bit uneasy. Well, it's new. Not exactly official, but we're seeing each other. A grin spread across Riley's face. That's awesome. Mom always told me you weren't the type for big romance. Guess she was wrong. Is she nice? He softened. She's strong, brilliant, and not someone who'd ever do what your mother did. So yeah, she's nice. Riley looked relieved. I'm happy for you, Dad. You deserve a loving partner eventually, even if I still can't believe you're really moving out there for good. He sensed genuine support in her voice. Thanks, kiddo. You focus on your studies, okay? Deal, she said with a laugh. Alyssa's early release hearing? Just as Dennis was settling into his new routine, a call from Rebecca jarred him. Apparently, Alyssa's lawyer is petitioning for an early release. Good behavior. She served half her short sentence already. Dennis's jaw tightened. So she might get out soon? Possibly in the next month, Rebecca confirmed. It's a standard process. The judge might grant it if she's been compliant. He felt a brief flash of concern. Does that affect me? Could she come after me again? Rebecca's tone was calming. Legally, no. The divorce is final, the judgments are set. She owes restitution. Her conviction stands. She's got a felony record. No job prospects. She might try to contact you, but there's little she can do. If she harasses you, you can file a restraining order. Dennis sighed. All right. Let her do whatever. I'm not losing sleep over it. Meanwhile, rumors surfaced that Joel Anders was hooking up with some older woman who had money. Kendrick shot Dennis a text. "He's repeating his pattern, mooching off someone else." Dennis replied, "Makes sense. Parasites rarely change." As long as Joel stayed out of his life, Dennis couldn't care less. The $50K judgment remained active, so any legitimate income Joel earned would be garnished. If he wanted to keep living off new lover's generosity, that was on him. After a hectic few weeks, Dennis's condo in San Francisco was furnished enough for him to host a small gathering. Brianna teased him about celebrating the new director. He invited a few local colleagues, one or two old Chicago-based co-workers who flew in, plus a cameo by Kendrick, who was in town for a weekend. They toasted with champagne in the spacious living area, the windows offering a partial bay view. Kendrick, grin wide, pulled Dennis aside at one point. "Look at you, man! City condo, big job, and that woman—" He tilted his head toward Brianna, who was laughing at some story across the room. "She's smitten." Dennis smirked, a content warmth in his chest. "I think so. I'm equally smitten, I guess." Kendrick clapped him on the back. "You deserve it. The old chapter's closed." They both glimpsed Brianna glancing over, sending Dennis a subtle smile that conveyed more than words. He returned it, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I've come so far from that heartbreak." Days later, Rebecca sent a online email. "Judge granted Alyssa's early release. She'll be out next week." Dennis stared at the words, emotions swirling. So soon? He told himself it shouldn't matter. She had no hold on him. Still, an undercurrent of anxiety flickered. Would she try to cause chaos? He consulted with Rebecca, who repeated, "You hold all the cards. She can't legally touch you. If she tries, we'll take action." He nodded. "All right, let her roam free. It changes nothing." Sure enough, days after her release, Dennis received a blocked number call. He let it ring out, ignoring it. Then a voicemail popped up. "Dennis, it's Alyssa. I'm out. I promise I won't bother you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry again. I'm heading out of state, don't worry. I won't be around. Bye." He listened, a strange knot in his gut. She sounded hollow, deflated. Heading out of state? Possibly to find some distant relative or cheap place to live. At least she's not staying here. He deleted the message without responding. Let that be the last note. A visit with Riley before her London trip time slipped by. Riley's study abroad semester approached. Dennis invited her to San Francisco for a short father-daughter weekend. She arrived, bright-eyed, eager to see his new condo. She marveled at the city's hills, the vibrant waterfront. He took her to a local brunch spot. She asked many questions about his job, the travel, his possible new relationship with Brianna. She teased him. "Are you going to get married again someday?" He nearly choked on his coffee. "Slow down. I just got out of a war zone. Brianna and I are taking it step by step." Riley giggled. "Right. Sorry, just curious. I'd like to see you truly happy, Dad." He felt a wave of affection. "I appreciate that, honey. I want you to be happy, too, in London. This is a big step for you." She grew serious. "I just wish Mom could see me off, but she's well. I guess she's out of jail, but not around." Dennis sighed gently. "I know it's tough. You can keep minimal contact with her if you want, but don't get dragged into her mess. She has to rebuild her life alone." Riley nodded, eyes glimmering with sadness. "Yeah, I guess so. Thanks for always being here, though, despite everything." He patted her hand. "We're on a better path now. Let's keep it that way." That evening, Riley showed Dennis a text from an unknown number. "Riley, it's Mom. I'm out of prison. I'd love to see you. I'm sorry for everything. Let me know if we can talk." Riley bit her lip, showing it to Dennis. "What do I do? Part of me wants to see her. Part of me is scared. She's so toxic sometimes." He considered. "You're an adult now. If you choose to see her, be cautious. Maybe do it in a public place. Keep it short. Set boundaries." Riley nodded. "I might. I miss the good side of her." He squeezed her shoulder. "Be careful. If it gets ugly, walk away." She murmured agreement, uncertain but wanting closure. Like father? Like daughter? Dennis thought. They both needed to handle Alyssa on their own terms. Embracing the future. Late that night, after Riley had gone to sleep in the guest room, Brianna dropped by. She'd texted him earlier. "Had a late meeting nearby, want to swing over for a nightcap?" He welcomed her in, the condo quiet and softly lit. They settled on his couch, sipping wine. She inquired about Riley's visit. He told her about the potential meeting with Alyssa. She gave him a sympathetic look. "Your daughter's navigating a tough situation, but she's strong. She got that from you." He smiled, warmed by her presence. "I'm trying to guide her without controlling her." Brianna nodded. "That's wise. Let her make her choices." She set her wine glass down. "By the way, the board wants to announce your new role formally next week. They're hosting a dinner. You'll attend with me if that's okay?" His heart skipped. "Like, as your Plusone?" She teased. "As my partner, if you will." A flutter rose in his chest. "I'd love to." They leaned closer, the conversation drifting to more personal ground: favorite books, hidden dreams, random jokes. Eventually, their words faded, replaced by a gentle intimacy as they shared a tender kiss in the quiet night. In that moment, Dennis felt it fully. The old life had ended. A bright horizon lay ahead, untainted by Alyssa's betrayal. Freed from that pain, he had room to embrace new love, new possibilities. Chapter 12. Over the next couple of weeks, life settled into a calm pattern. Dennis officially signed papers making him Director of Global Projects. He coordinated with Vernon Tech's HR to finalize his salary, stock options, and office location. All signs pointed to a comfortable, stable future. Meanwhile, no new drama arose from Alyssa or Joel. Rebecca gave him occasional updates. Joel is still jobless, rummaging for quick cash. Alyssa apparently left the state. She's staying with some aunt in Florida. Good. The further away, the better, Dennis thought. Riley parted for her study, a broad trip to London. Dennis ensured she had her finances in order. They shared a heartfelt hug at the airport. She whispered, "Thanks, Dad. I'm proud of you for making a new life. I'll keep in touch." He watched her plane taxi away, a lump in his throat. We're forging forward, each in our own way. Director of Global Projects. That week, Vernon Tech threw a celebratory dinner at a chic restaurant near the bay. Executives, board members, and department heads attended. Dennis arrived with Brianna on his arm, both dressed in sharp formal attire. Cameras flashed as the CEO officially introduced him as the new Director of Global Projects, praising his leadership, resilience, and problem-solving under extreme circumstances. Applause thundered. Dennis felt a surge of gratitude and pride. Just a year ago, I was fighting for my dignity against Alyssa's betrayal. Now I'm here, recognized as a top leader. He squeezed Brianna's hand under the table. She squeezed back, eyes shining with pride. A few colleagues teased him about having secret superpowers to handle crises. He laughed politely, deflecting references to his personal drama. He'd built a reputation for unstoppable resolve, a direct result of that messy divorce. Funny how life's darkest chapters can fuel your greatest successes. Later that night, after the dinner ended, Dennis and Brianna strolled down the waterfront promenade, the city lights reflecting on the rippling water. She looped her arm around his waist. "You know, people were asking if we're official. I said we're an item." He paused, meeting her gaze. "An item, huh?" She smirked. "Unless you object. I like you, Dennis. Not just as a colleague, obviously. We've come a long way from those days in Jakarta, quietly conspiring to ruin your ex." He chuckled. "Yeah, look at us now. I like you too a lot. I want to see where this goes." She leaned in, brushing a soft kiss on his lips. "Then let's keep going." He felt his chest swell with warmth. No reservations. She wasn't Alyssa. She was forthright, strong, empathetic. He deserved a second chance at real companionship. So why not dive in? A few days later, Dennis received an envelope from the Florida Department of Corrections, some official form regarding restitution. It stated that Alyssa had declared her new residence in Florida, living under probation terms. She had to pay monthly restitution installments. A small portion of each check would eventually come to Dennis to compensate for the forged mortgage fiasco. He showed the letter to Brianna, who asked, "You want to keep track of that?" He shrugged. "I guess so. She owes me money, but it won't be much. At least it's a forced reminder she can't escape the consequences." Another piece of mail was a short note from Alyssa's new probation officer confirming her address. Alyssa must have provided it. So she's really gone from my immediate orbit, Dennis thought. He felt no sadness, just acceptance. One morning, an email landed in Dennis's spam folder from Joel's new address. The subject, "Payment arrangements, please." Out of curiosity, Dennis skimmed it. "Dennis, I can't keep up with the garnishment. My new job is minimum wage. I'll never pay off that $50K. Can we settle for a smaller lump sum? I can get a loan for maybe $10K if you'll close the rest. Please, I'm begging." Joel Dennis snorted softly. He forwarded it to Rebecca with a simple note. "No," she replied. "Agreed. We do not negotiate with scumbags. We'll keep garnishing. He can suffer." That was that. Another door closed. Joel would remain in debt for years. A fitting outcome. Blossoming confidence. Meanwhile, Riley's overseas semester kicked off. She flooded Dennis with cheerful updates, photos of London landmarks, new friends, classes. Her tone was buoyant, a far cry from the bitter cynic she'd been under Alyssa's influence. She even mentioned wanting to remain for a full year if scholarships or finances allowed. Dennis replied encouragingly, promising to evaluate it. He felt genuinely proud of her growth. Freed from Alyssa's toxic mindset, Riley soared. One afternoon, while Dennis walked out of a Vernon Tech meeting in downtown San Francisco, he spotted a face from the past. Robert Lindstrom, an older exec who once attended the party where Alyssa first openly flirted with Joel. Robert, looking somewhat uncomfortable, approached. "Dennis? Hey," he said, voice tight. I heard about everything that happened with your ex-wife. Sorry if I contributed to that party environment." Dennis eyed him. "I remember you hosting that gathering. You introduced Alyssa to a bunch of marketing guys, right?" Robert shrugged, embarrassment plain. "Yeah, never dreamed it'd spiral like that. I just wanted to say, I always respected you, and I'm sorry for the fiasco." A surge of old bitterness threatened, but Dennis contained it. "It's over now. No hard feelings. She made her choices." Robert exhaled relief. "Glad to hear that. So you're the new director? Congrats, man." Dennis gave a curt nod. "Thanks. Good seeing you." He turned and strode off, feeling no malice. Another ghost from the old life, properly laid to rest. As the weeks rolled into months, Dennis and Brianna's relationship deepened. She proposed a weekend getaway to Napa Valley wine country and escape from city stress. He agreed eagerly. They drove up the scenic highway, checked into a charming bed and breakfast, and spent days sampling wines, strolling vineyards, savoring gourmet meals. Amid the rolling hills, sunlight filtering through rows of grapevines, Dennis felt a contentment he'd nearly forgotten existed. One evening, while sitting on a terrace with glasses of wine, Brianna quietly asked, "Have you fully moved on from everything?" He set down his glass, meeting her gaze. "Yes. I visited Alyssa in jail. That was closure. I used to be fueled by rage. But I'm done. She's out of my life. I've got a new role, new city, and you." He gently laced his fingers with hers. "I'm grateful for that." A shy smile curved her lips. "Good. Because I care for you, Dennis. A lot." Emotions swelled in him. He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I feel the same. Let's keep building this. No fear." She nodded, eyes shining. The rest of the evening passed in a dreamy haze of closeness, overshadowed by none of the old bitterness. Soon after their Napa trip, Dennis flew briefly to Chicago for transitional paperwork. Stepping into the old HQ building, he felt nostalgia but zero desire to remain. The memories of living near Alyssa haunted these corridors. Now, staffers congratulated him, praising his new position out west. He smiled politely, shook hands. During lunch with some old colleagues, one joked, "You might even become a VP eventually." Another added, "Glad you got free from that crazy wife fiasco. We heard it was intense." Dennis kept his answers measured. "Yeah, it was. But it's all behind me." Inside, he felt an odd relief that no trace of that fiasco remained here except whispers. He truly was forging a fresh path. Finally returning to San Francisco for good, Dennis found himself standing on his new condo's balcony, gazing at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in warm hues. He reflected on the journey, from the moment he discovered Alyssa's betrayal, to the legal battles, the heartbreak, the fury, the unstoppable pursuit of justice. He'd come out victorious, battered but stronger. His phone chimed with a text from Brianna. "Just finished a meeting. I'll swing by soon. Miss you." He grinned, replying, "Doors open." He looked to the horizon. The old chapter with Alyssa was sealed. She was a felon in Florida, out of his realm. Joel's life was in ruins. Riley thrived in London, reliant on no one's illusions. Dennis, once the naive husband, was now a respected director, financially secure, emotionally reawakening with Brianna. Yes, betrayal had taught him harsh lessons, but it also propelled him to discover an unyielding resilience. Actions have consequences, was the motto that had guided his revenge. Now, on the other side, he embraced the consequences of forging a new life with open arms, a second chance at happiness. As dusk settled, he closed his eyes, inhaled the cool air, and allowed genuine peace to fill him. The war was over. He stood tall, heart unburdened, ready for whatever tomorrow brought. And that was the greatest victory of all.